Okay. I am back. Oh, sorry about that, y'all. Like I said, it is not a good stream if there is not a little bit of struggle, and we definitely had that. So, y'all, I had to go out and come back in because there are all kinds of stuff happening with my audio. So, I will wait for a few of you guys to join. I know I had to abruptly stop with the last one due to some audio and visual and it just issues of all kinds. So I'll wait for a few of you guys to join and then I will get started. But in the meantime, I did want to give a special shout out. I did see a super chat come through. Um, so shout out to Hakeem with the $7.50 on the super chats. I always appreciate you. You are always just showing so much support. So I appreciate you. I really do. Thank you, Hakeem. So it's for always a pleasure. And it is always a pleasure to have you here, commenting, being here. I appreciate you. I really do. Um, yeah, I didn't want to do the countdown because I already do the countdown with the first with the first struggle stream that got taken down. So again, thank you for joining me. So just to get right into today's topic, male identified mammies are winning. Male identified mammies are winning. Now, the reason I wanted to address this is because I did a post actually yesterday where I just kind of addressed this term, male identified and the way that this has been used to be an insult for women. I've heard this many a times, even related to topics where men weren't even in the conversation. I think the first time I really started to see this was when I did a review. Gosh, who was it with? I think the first time I really saw this being thrown at me is when I did the review of Cynthia G. That's when I really started to see this term like just reinforced over and over and over again. So I've seen this term used along with, the pick me, pick Misha, mule, all these different things. And what's so interesting is so there is I guess, a denotative and a connotative definition, right? There's a definition of what it should mean, right? And then there's a definition of how it's actually used. And so I wanted to go a little bit more into this because I think what I saw on this post yesterday in particular, some of the comments that I saw, I think really speaks to the misandrous elements in our culture and our society that they're so ingrained in our psyche and we're so used to them that we don't even know that we're doing it. And this isn't to say that obviously, misogyny exists. Obviously, there are men and there are institutions and there are people out there that are discriminatory against women. Absolutely. But I think the tide has turned so much that we don't even necessarily understand, especially as women of color, we don't understand when we are just blatantly being misandrist. When we are just blatantly promoting behavior that at the end of the day is undermining our own relational success, undermining our own personal happiness, undermining maybe our future sons. Like we don't even understand it. And so I wanted to go a little bit more into this because I do think it's something that needs to be addressed. And just like anything out there, pick me, mammies, mules, these are all terms that have been used to try to demean and try to shame women who simply think men should have a voice, especially when it comes to relationships. This is the way it's been used against me. Mammy, mule, pick me. It's been used anytime I share information that is maybe not favorable to women. It doesn't make women look good. It doesn't make Black women look good. Anytime I share what is actually going on, I expose what is actually going on. I'm a mammy, I'm a pick me, I'm a mule. I'm not holding Black men accountable, right? This is something that I've heard regularly. And again, this is not even me saying, oh, men are perfect, all men are gods, men can do no wrong. That's an issue. I'm literally sitting here and stating the facts and saying, hey, this is what's happening. Here's the amount of single mothers. Here's the amount of single fathers. I'm a male-identified man. So again, I want to unpack this a little bit because I think this speaks to a deeper cancer that we have in our culture that just isn't healthy. It's not healthy no matter how you put it, no matter how you want to spin it. It's not healthy. I don't think it's cute, and I don't think it should be acceptable. So I want to get into it. Those who are on here, please get those likes up, y'all. Again, I will be mindful to read all super chat. Also, please show support to the show. If you like this platform, if you like what I'm about, and you would like to see more messages like this, I need your support to get it out there. So please show support to the show. You can find me on Cash App or Venmo Shay Sade. You can also show support. There's some love in the super chat. I will be sure to acknowledge and read all super chats. So I'm going to bring up the post because I think this post alone, there was so much to me that came just from that one interaction, and I thought it was worth talking about. So I'm going to bring it up, and we're going to get into it, y'all. So let me see real quick. As I bring that up. And while I'm doing this, y'all let me know in the conversation, what does male identified, what does it mean to you? What does that actually mean to you? Is it a bad thing? Of course, there's going to be people out there who do think that being male identified is bad. If that's you, put your comments down. But what does it actually mean to be male identified? Because as I mentioned before, oftentimes these terms are thrown around, and the definition behind them, it's very, very, I don't know if there's really a clear definition. It tends to change based upon the person. But oftentimes I see it being used in a way that's negative. So if it lets me pull up the channel. Okay, let's see. This is weird. Now it's one act. Cash App. Thanks for showing the love there. So yes, guys, I am currently trying to pull up this post, and it'll eventually let me do so. It's not letting me bring up my own channel. That's strange. Okay, let me try something different. This is the fun part. Okay. Okay, yeah, it's right here. So I got some pretty good responses. I got about 130 responses, and like I said, I think it's worth unpacking because again, it speaks to some misandry that I see. Again, guys, if you're on here, get those likes up. Likes are free. Likes are free. Also, please show support to the show if you like my content, and if you would like to see more content out there that's positive, or that's at least challenging the narrative, I will need your support in order to keep this going. So again, you can find me on Cash App for Venmo Shay Sade. I'm going to look into this. So this is what I posted yesterday, and I'm going to read briefly my thoughts on this, and then we'll get into it. So it says, ladies, being male identified is not a bad thing. Okay, being male identified is not a bad thing, and I still stand by that. Even with all the different pushback, I still stand by the fact that being male identified is not a bad thing. More women should become male identified if they want romantic relationships with a strong man who will lead. We throw this term around as if it's an insult, but when did learning how to get along with men, who, by the way, we actually want protection and provision from, when did that become a problem? Why is female heterosexuality so criticized when it will lead to the results we actually desire as women? We are far too contradictory at times, y'all. Complaining that men don't provide, lead, step up, commit, build, or know how to be men today, and at the same time undermining the very aspects of maleness that would allow them to do this for us. How do we do this? How do we undermine the men we desire? By our unwillingness to listen to their side, by convincing ourselves that we, the women, always have it right, by believing that we are perpetually victimized by bad actors, or that we are actually in competition with men, by assuming that all forms of constructive criticism and statistical realities that make us look bad are misogynist or misogynoir, even if they are the truth. Supporting platforms that bash men fun is not a flex, y'all. It is not a flex. Listening to female relationship experts with no track record of success is trauma bonding. Pretending that all men are the problem is childish. Believing that all relational issues stem from everyone else is denial. If you actually desire a man, you better learn how to get along with one. So again, this is what I shared. I shared this yesterday. And even after all the different posts, even after all the different, pushbacks that I had, I still stand by this. Also, shout out to Marco Polo with the $4.99 in the super chat. I see. Those faceless trolls would never show their face. It will expose the ugliness. Misery loves company, so they shame good women. You hit on a good point, and I actually talked about this on my one of my previous videos, where it seems to be the main detractors and some of the main criticizers literally no idea how they look, literally no idea who they are. They throw the rock and hide their hand. I am open. I don't need to be right. I am open to having an honest and open dialogue. I really am. But to me, it's very weak and it's very disingenuous when you pretend to be an expert on everything, or just heap insults upon insults upon insults and don't even have the decency to be accountable for what you say. Because I think a lot of people, this whole idea of free speech, free speech usually was associated with, okay, somebody actually, you would see them, you would go to a person and you would say what you think, say what you mean, but you had to be responsible for that. You couldn't hide. But now in the digital space, you have all these people who are acting big and bad and the experts and the authority and everything, and we don't know who they are. They are anonymous. And I don't necessarily have a problem with being an anonymous per se, except for when now it becomes a tool for you to spread hatred, or for you to spread false opinions, or for you to act like you're an expert in something, or to be the criticizer of everything, and you're not held responsible for what you do. To me, that's what a child does. A child is one that wants to do whatever they want and not be held responsible for it. And that is a toxic cycle. So thank you, Marco Polo, for that. Also, shout out to DOD for becoming a new member. I really appreciate you guys, members. Stay tuned. I have some other things coming your way. I also have some questions I want to ask you. So I do appreciate all members. I want to appreciate all of you guys who are showing support. And I'm excited to drop my other members only Black Men Built That video later on this month. So stay tuned for that. That should be fun. Also, shout out to Eugene Steele for the 20 on the super chat. It says, when Black women content creators hold women accountable, inadvertently, they hold us men accountable. For example, when one talks about the men providing the 4 Ps, it's let us as men know that we better get it together. Yeah. And like I said, I've had plenty of men come on here who've shared their thoughts, and they have said things that have been constructive and arguably critical against men. So I will say, as a woman, I am not a man, obviously. So it's like I can share my perspective, but it's not my place as a woman to teach men how to be men. I don't have the capacity to do so. So I can share my perspective, but I think it's better to let men really lead the conversation about the way men need to do better and build and show up. It's better to have them lead that conversation, because men are the ones that know how to be men. As a woman, I don't know how to be a man. Like I said, I can share my perspective. I can share my experience, but the ones really leading the charge on holding men accountable needs to be men. So also for those of you who are like, well, why don't you hold men accountable? Like I said, I've had different conversations where I've talked about things that men can improve. I've mostly had men come on and share the different ways that they can improve. And I will continue to do so. But as a man, I do not have the traits, because I'm not a man. You know what I mean? I don't have the traits to do that. Like, I don't have the capacity. Women don't know how to teach men how to be men. Men need to do that. So I think it's good for us to understand our place. And as a woman, it's like, I'm primarily focused on women, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to clarify that. Also, shout out to there. I said it for the 5 on the super chat. Respect sub. Much appreciate for all the love and support. And then Mr. Z, 5 on the super chat. Always good to have you here. I see. What world are these adversaries living in where all these non-Black men are better than Black men? Other than they're better than Black men, she is a radical feminist. She sounded like very egotistical. So, no, you're right. And that's the crazy thing about it too. We act as if we don't come from the same place. But yeah, I'll get into it. So anyways, thank you for the support, y'all. If you're on here, hit those likes up. Likes are free. Also, show support to the show. You can find me on Cash App or Venmo. I will be sure to read and acknowledge all super chats. And again, if you like to see more content like this, if you like to see channels that are questioning the status quo and really trying to get to the truth and trying to do healthy and constructive things for women, please show your support. So, getting right into it again, we're talking about this idea of women being male identified. So, as I said before, as I said before, I stand by this still. What I said, let's see if I can change this orientation to get a bit. How do I do this? Okay, I'll get there. I stand by what I said still, which is that women in particular, I think, if you actually desire to be in a relationship, actually, I'm going to come up for this one fully. If you desire to be in a relationship with a strong man who will lead, which many of us do want, you need to know how to identify with your man. This is not a bad thing. This is not an evil thing. This is not oh, you're weak bone, you're weak minded thing. This is just basic heterosexuality. A woman who wants to learn how to be in a relationship with a man, with a strong man who will lead, needs to know how to identify with him. So that's what I'm saying. We throw these terms around as if they're negative, not really understanding how ridiculous we sound. And see, and here's the thing about it. A few of the thoughts in there when they were trying to break down male identified, what they said is no, being male identified is putting yourself in a place of abuse. Being male identified is meaning that you're being controlled. Being male identified, and so I did see a few comments, so we're going to get into it, but I saw a few comments that were alluding to that a male identified woman is somebody who is now under the control, is now under the the iron clutch of men, that she is just being abused. And what that language shows me is that there is this embedded assumption of really misandry, that we assume that anytime we're identifying with men, that men are naturally going to be violent, that they're naturally going to be controlling, that they're naturally going to be the ones that are, that are evil. They're naturally going to be the ones that are the aggressors. They're naturally going to be the ones that are violent. Like this different language that I saw was showing me that I think at the core, some of us come with these misandrous ideas that any interaction or any identification with manness is you now identifying with violence, as if men are just by default going to be violent, as our men are by default going to be aggressive. And listen, that there are men out there who are violent. There are men out there who are aggressive. We know this, but we cannot act like that is the dynamic 100% of the time. When we look at the interpersonal violence rate, we look at the domestic violence, we see that women are very, very aggressive. And that more often than not, we see that women are the ones who are initiating violence more. I mean, the rates have gone up, crazy. Dr. Tiazon Johnson talks about this, Tommy Curry talks about this. But this idea that just by you identifying with a man or being in a relationship with a man in a certain dynamic, you're automatically going to be controlled and you're automatically going to be victimized. That's not borne out by just statistical reality. But I think what's happening is we bought into this idea as women, as men. The essence of who man is they're naturally violent and they're naturally aggressive and they're naturally controlling. And so if we come in with that idea, then men are now something to be protected from. Men are now something that you need to shield yourself from. Men are now something that you need to hide yourself from. And it's those ideologies, whether they are conscious or subconscious, those are the things that I think really, really start to undermine any relationship we would have, any healthy relationship we would have with a potential partner or potential spouse, really. Because if you have already convinced somewhere down deep inside that men, whoever they are not to be trusted, especially Black men, if you go into the Black community, Black men are never to be trusted. Well, of course you're not going to want to submit to that. Of course you're not going to want to, honor the authority that person has in your life, because you're seeing their authority, you're seeing their maleness as a threat. You're seeing their maleness as violence. You're seeing their maleness as now you're going to be harmed. And like I said, I saw that theme over and over again in some of these different comments, and it was very interesting to me. So I want to bring that up. Let me bring this up a little bit. Again, y'all, if you're on here, get those likes up. Likes are free. So show some love on the Cash App or the Super Chats, y'all. So I'm going to bring up again where did it go? Yeah, okay. So let me see if I can get these comments a little bit more so you can see it. So let's just start hop into these comments, because I thought that's where it was interesting for me to see the way, a few different people took it. We just did this news first. Let me see. Okay, so here's one right here. We're just going to get into it. So it says, sis, This is not what male identified means, like at all. It seems like a straw man argument when you break down points that don't accurately represent the meaning of the term. This seems like a better argument for the term pick me, which is used to dismiss women for actually caring about what men think and what men want. Male identified women are the kind of women who would accuse another woman of putting a brother in jail for rightfully calling the cops on an abuser. Male identified women are the kind of women who sweep pedophiles and child molesters under the rug because they care more about protecting their brother, uncle, boyfriend than the male identified women are the kind of women who will call a little girl fast for getting molested instead of holding them. These are women who make excuses for the bad behavior of men. These are women who think having a man defines you to a point where you should put up with a whole bunch of ghetto craziness to have somebody. Okay, so y'all, again, likes are free. So hit the like button, hit the like button. So there we have it. She has, I'm assuming this is she, her definition of male identified. Now here's the thing. There was never a course that I took or any of us took in school called male identified. I don't think there is a literary scholastic term that could accurately define what are the terms of male identification. So what's interesting in here is that I have all these people in those comments letting me know what it means to be male identified. Everybody and many people in the comments have telling me, no, this is the definition. This is what it is. Where we actually find the definitive denotative understanding of what male identification is, I don't know, because like I said, it's just a term that was used from popular culture. But if we literally look at the actual literal meaning, male identification, you're identifying with a male. Like, how is that negative? To me, what is described there is abuse. That's codependency. There are little terms for that, right? But again, that's being codependent. That like there are actual psychological terms to describe essentially what was addressed in that comment. But male identification, it's none of them. This is a popular term. Now, the reason I use this, the reason I wanted to focus on this term male identified, and then we can talk about mammies later, again, is because the way that it has been used for me, anybody listening right now who wanted to share your understanding of what it means to be identified, anybody who sent me a comment, anybody who sent me a long response of like, no, this is what male identification means. I need you to understand that the way that it has been used and applied in my life, it has been an insult. It has been any time I've gone and said, hey, men should have a voice, or I have shared statistical realities that cannot be argued that are not favorable for women. Now I'm male identified. That is a far cry from somebody being in an abusive relationship, from somebody being in a relationship where there's violence, from somebody being in a relationship where they are being abused or harmed, or children are being harmed. That is a far difference. So what's interesting to me again about these comments is I'm seeing women in there saying, no, being male identified is a woman who is being abused and is making excuses for being abused. Okay, fair. If that is the definition, if we can all assume that's the definition, granted, I'll take it. But now when it comes to the way it's being used, I have the male come on and share a statistical reality about, well, what's happening, I don't know, with domestic violence, what's happening with the financial profile of men and women. Just having an honest conversation, real conversation, looking at the facts, not denying it for what it is. I do that. Now I'm male identified. So this is what I'm saying. It's like we cannot have it both. We can't have it both ways. We can have it both ways. And since there is not a clear, like I said, scholastic, educational, collegiate definition of the term male identified, it doesn't exist. It's up for everybody's own interpretation. It's interesting for me to see the way that it is oftentimes used to attack women who are simply trying to be balanced, who are simply not saying women don't have it right all the time, men don't have it right all the time, who are simply trying to challenge the status quo. Because again, in my life, at least what I've seen, that is a way that it's been used. It hasn't been used to talk about women who are, in abusive relationships or capping for men in abusive like it hasn't been used that. It has been specifically applied to women who simply do not hate men and do not see male misandry as a level up, or do not see male misandry as a flex. That's the way it's been used in my life. So again, if you're on here, guys, get those likes up. Also tag anybody, share this with thing who had it interesting. Y'all, please show support on the Cash App. on the Cash App, or you can also show some support on the Super Chat. I will be sure to acknowledge all Super Chats. So, anyways, so like I said, that was interesting. That was an interesting definition of male identified, and we're gonna see more. We're gonna see more of that. So let me continue. Let me continue. I see Happy Women's Day. Shout out to Mr. Bobby Wright for being everywhere. The great thing about YouTube is everyone has a voice. The worst thing about YouTube is everyone has a voice. I've said that before. Now here's one I think I saw that was pretty interesting. It says, this is an apples and oranges issue. In my opinion, which granted this is her opinion, being male identified has nothing to do with understanding men. So being male identified has nothing to do with identifying with men. Okay, whatever. Her opinion. It is a term used to explain why so many women seem to give men a pass for poor behavior while bashing women for far less. At least that is what I thought it was. It is used a term to explain why so many women give men a pass for poor behavior while bashing women for far less. At least, okay. I believe women can strive to understand men better without bashing other women. I've heard male friends laugh at this. They think it is funny because women come for each other without holding them accountable. If this is what it means to be male identified, then you can have it. I'm about supporting and uplifting women. Okay, so in her understanding of male identified is not about knowing how to identify with men. Okay, although that's the, if you look at it from a denotative standpoint, just the definitions of the word, that's what it would mean. But for her, it doesn't mean that. It just means women who are looking for excuses to bash women and not holding men accountable. Again. Okay. And like I said, I could accept that. I could accept that as true. But the way that it's being applied, as I said before, is anytime you just put out anything that is maybe not favorable, doesn't make women look good, you're male identified. Here's another thing I want to mention, you guys. I believe that so many of us, to a certain extent, so many of us grew up in either undisciplined homes, or maybe we didn't have strong authority figures in our life, or maybe we weren't taught how to respect authority figures, that there is not an understanding of constructive criticism. That constructive criticism or simple reality is seen as emotional abuse, or it is seen as hatred. I posted something again, maybe like an hour or two ago, where I talked about this, and I said, hey, just because something feels good when you hear it, or just because it's what you want to hear, does not necessarily mean it's what you need to hear. For example, I can think back to the interview I had with two lovely ladies a couple of weeks ago, where they had collectively lost 200 pounds. If one of the women had gotten to be up to 500 pounds, if when she was up to 500 pounds, I said, you know what? You're beautiful. God made you beautiful. You deserve the best. You are the best. Everything about you is amazing all the time. You do no wrong. Like if I told her these things, and she's at 500 pounds and she's diabetic, gout, she's sleep apnea, she has kidney issues, she has all these things going on with her. But instead of me addressing those things going on with her, I say, hey, well, you're perfect. You can do no wrong. You can be whatever you want to be, and you can go with whatever man you want to go for. I would be lying to her. I actually would be I would be hurting her, actually, because now the reality is, her at 500 pounds, she had a lot of medical issues. She had a lot of things going on in her life that were not good. Does not mean that she didn't have value as a person. Doesn't mean she didn't have value as a woman. But if I'm looking at her, and she is clearly eaten herself into a place where she is unhealthy, and she got to the place where her doctor said, you could die if you don't fix this. If I said, girl, don't listen to what the doctor says, you just do you, just love yourself, just love who you are, my body, my choice. Like if I just kept on saying that, my friend may no longer be here. She may have actually died. And so we have the conversation, and she was using the example of her weight, and she was like, you know what? body positive, not necessarily always positive. Yeah, it's positive as far as you can accept where you're at in the moment and you can find ways to love aspects of yourself that you cannot change. But do not use body positive as a way to overlook and address real harmful things to your health. And so the reason I use it as an example is because I think sometimes as women, we've been pandered to so much sometimes, or we've heard certain things so much because you cannot, there's just certain things you can't say on media. There's just certain things that you can't say about Black women online. There's just certain things that you just really can't address about, I think, women, period. Which is not necessarily always healthy because it doesn't. I feel like sometimes it's created this sense to where we're not always able to be held accountable. And if you've heard so many times, for example, all women are tens, whatever that may mean, or take me as I am, or I am the table, or I am the prize. If you've kind of heard all these things, but they're not balanced with the expectations of what it means to be a healthy, functional adult, then any ounce of criticism or any speck of something that would challenge you to grow can be seen as hatred, can be seen as, well, who are you? Well, you're bashing me. When in reality, it's like, no, I'm not bashing you. I'm calling a spade a spade. It's almost like, it's like if you, many of you guys, maybe you've seen children, right? You've seen children who are disciplined and they parents have given them boundaries. Their parents tell them, no, you can't have a cake right before you go to sleep. No, you can't have a whole carton of ice cream. No, like they put boundaries on their children. No, you can't watch 10 hours of TV. They put boundaries on their children. So when they say, hey, Johnny, stop, that can hurt you. Hey, Johnny, don't run in the middle of the street. You could get hit by a car. They listen. But if you've also seen parents where maybe they have harder times controlling their children or having harder times putting boundaries, anytime they try to do something constructive, the kid's like, no, mommy, I hate you. I hate you. How could you do this to me? Like literally, maybe you guys, you've seen this. And it's the same way. It is the same way for some of us as adults, right? Like I said, if there hasn't been discipline, if there hasn't been the understanding that love sometimes is constructive, that people who love you aren't going to tell you like, hey, you look cute if you got spinach in your teeth. You know what I mean? Or they're not going to tell you, hey, they're not going to lie to you. They're going to tell you what it is. If you didn't have that growing up, then anytime you see something that may challenge you to do better, then you're going to see it as, who are you? You're hating me. And that's not the case. That's not the case. So again, guys, if you're on here, get those likes up, y'all. Get those likes up. Also, please show support to the show. Support me on Cash App, or you can find me on Venmo. Also, y'all, again, please support me through Super Chats if you would like to see content like this, more content like this. If you'd like to see positive messages out there that go against the status quo, I will need your support. So please send in whatever support you can have. And like I said, likes are free. So if nothing else, be sure to hit the like button and comment because that helps. But anyways, I wanted to mention that because I think some of us women, honestly, we just simply are not used to be told. We're not used to hearing the truth about ourselves, or we're not used to even hearing an ounce of it because we're surrounded by people who are either in their own delusion or who are maybe scared to tell us the truth because if we say anything to them that they don't like, then they may pop up out the mouth and they may start the whole shaming tactic. And it can create an imbalance. So I think women also need to understand that just because you hear something that you don't necessarily like does not mean that it's false. Yeah, there are people who say things out of the wrong intention. Sometimes somebody can say something truthful and it's to hurt you. It's not to be nice. It's to just be evil. So I understand people with bad intentions, but people who really honestly love you, or just people who want the best for you, or even if they don't want the best for you, but it's something that you could benefit from, take the truth. Truth does not always feel good at initially, but truth has a way of producing life and producing good results in your life. But if we can never take it in, if we are so stubborn and bullheaded, and if we think it only applies to me if it feels good, then we're never going to see any good results in our life that we want. And it's always going to be somebody else's problem. It's always going to be his problem or her problem or the colorism's problem or fat phobia's problem, or Black men are color's problem, or Becky's problem, or preference's problem. It's always going to be everybody else's problem versus what we ourselves can do. And like I said, that is a way to never change. And that is a way to never, ever see the fruits that you want in your life. And we shouldn't celebrate that. So again, shout out to Chief Rocca for the 20 on the super sticker. Much appreciated. Hey, I am Courtney Michelle. Thanks for being here. Thank you for being here. So yeah, and I appreciate the support. I really do. Some of you guys are consistent supporters, so I do appreciate it. So I'm gonna move on. We're gonna move on now to some of these other comments because, like I said, it's showing to me so much. It is showing so much about just some ideas that we have as women. So here we have one over here. So true, and I'm going to try to let my next man lead me and believe in him, but I will be ready to help if he needs. I will honor and treat a king like a king. Hand clap. Hand clap. Now, let me also say this. There's nothing wrong with a woman catering to her men. Nothing wrong with it. I think women should serve their men. In any healthy relationship, there may be times where you give to a person more than they give to you, and vice versa. It's not always going to be like that. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. She just celebrated her 42nd year anniversary, 42nd years. And she was explaining to me, she's like, you know what? A lot of young people today don't have an understanding of healthy relationships. They think it's all about them, or they think that if they give or if they sacrifice for their husband or wife or whatever, that it's always going to be like that way. And she's like, no, like in a healthy dynamic, there may be times where you as a woman, you're sacrificing things. It seems like you're giving more than what he's giving back to you. He's like, but best believe over time, it's going to come back. It's like, relationships are symbiotic. You know, there's times where you're having to give, and there's times where he's carrying you, and vice versa. So it's like there is a give and take constantly. And she's like, and there's these ideas out here right now that they're not based upon reality. And so I think sometimes there's this fear, going back again to this fear that some of us essentially hold of just basic maleness. Us women, we have taken the bitter root, the bitter lie of the fact that men, the nature of men, who God created men to be, who God intended for men to be, as leaders, as fathers, as people, as men who bring instruction and discipline, they are evil and they are to be feared. We have taken that lie in, and therefore we can never accept the role in our life. We can never accept who they could be. We can never accept the balance that they could bring, maybe not even in our families, but even in society, because we fear and we demonize their actual attributes. And like I said, you cannot fear maleness. You cannot fear identifying with a male and expect to have a healthy relationship with a male. The two cannot coincide. And if you are in that kind of situation where you are anti-male, pick me, yada yada, whatever, and you were able to land a man or whatever, you're in that kind of situation, best believe there's probably some form of disrespect. Because at the core, you just simply do not respect how men are and who God created men to be. If you just at the core don't respect them, even if you end up in a long-term relationship or a marriage, there's going to be some disrespect. And there's going to be times when you are undermining their God-given role. And again, that is a problem. That is just a problem. It's become way too popular. And it's become way too like, I think, celebrated for us to demonize and for us to undermine maleness, men. And how can we complain about not having strong men who are leaders, and then at the same time demonize and undermine the very kind of men, who would do that? Oh, he said, oh, so I missed your super chat. Okay, let me make sure. I want to make sure I didn't miss your super chat. Oh, also shout out to Crimson Kier. I think I see Crimson Kier in the building. It's always good to have you here. Hey. And I want to make sure I don't miss nobody's super chat. I'm gonna go back up real quick because I appreciate all of you. Oh wait, I thought I read this, but okay, I'll read it again. It says, what world are these adversaries living in where all these non-black men are better than black men? Oh, yeah. All these non-black men are better than black men. She is a radical feminist shade. She sounded like very egotistical. Yeah, like I said, that doesn't exist. We actually come from the same community. So, and here's another thing that I think women don't, maybe they choose not to, they choose to overlook. Because if men are so bad, let's just say black men are so bad, they're conquered, they're evil, they're violent, they're selling drugs. You know what I mean? They're creating all these children out of wedlock. Granted, let's just assume that's true. How can you separate yourself from the very thing that you are? How can you do that? And it now becomes this argument of who comes first, the chicken and the egg, because somebody raised that boy or raised that man that you now say is violent. Somebody raised him. He was in 9 months incubated in the womb of a woman. That woman breastfed him, taught him, was the first original teacher. Woman was. Not to say the man wasn't there. Not to say the man wasn't there. But I'm like, a woman, especially early on, has such an integral role. So it's like, you can't, we try so hard to separate ourselves from each other that it becomes idiotic. It literally becomes idiotic. Because at every ounce that you are fighting against the men who share your complexion, you are fighting against yourself, because 50% of your DNA is from that person at the very least. You are made up of a black man and a black woman. There's no way you can spin it. So you can be the most hateful anti-black or anti-black male or divested or swirl, whatever. You can be that as much as you want. And at the end of the day, you go and you look in the mirror, and what you see is a reflection, is a reality that comes from black men. You can't get around it. You just simply can't. And I think we don't understand that when we are saying these things and we are buying into these things, we are hating on ourselves. We are damning ourselves. You are saying that you are the most violent. You are saying that you are the most hateful. You are saying that you are the most colorist because that black man is inside of you. You have his DNA in your bones. You cannot separate it. We were not, as black women, we were not incubated separate from, like, there is no way that we can separate ourselves from that reality. We can try as hard as we want. But if we have essentially said that the very DNA, the very essence of men, the very essence of black men is evil, and that DNA is in you, what is it saying about you? If that evil DNA is inside of you, what is that saying about you? You are not separate. You're not separate. So that's what I'm saying. We say these things and we don't understand how we implicate ourselves in the exact same harmful sin, if you will, the exact same harmful behavior. So I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna move on to the next comments, because like I said, there was a lot that I saw just to this one little post. So I see some who are agreeing. Well said. So here's another one. It said, so true. I made it my goal to understand men and what they require so I can be a quality woman in a successful relationship with a quality man. Imagine that. People, mostly females, are so pressed I defend men in conversations about relationships and dating. I always correct them when they generalize men and hold them accountable. Men love a kind woman that is understanding and rational. But for some reason, this is rocket science for a lot of females today. It is also the reason why I do not have a lot of friends, because modern females say talking trash about men and get upset when you tell the truth. It's very childish, and honestly, I'm over it. So like I said, I saw all kinds of comments in there. What's interesting about her perspective is that it's gotten to the point to where if you don't automatically take one side, you are demonized. And this is going back to my original thesis, right? That for male identified mammies, if you will, there's really no clear definition of what this means. I've had a few people in there try to give me the law, lay down the law of, oh, this is what it means to be male identified. But the way that it's actually used in practice It's very clear. It is used as a insult, as a pejorative against women in particular who simply acknowledge the fact that the man's side should be acknowledged. A relationship is a two-way street. Nobody should have 100% final say all the time. Nobody's perfect. Nobody there is even saying that you're perfect. Like, that's just not even common sense. So again, this goes back to my original role, that it's so interesting that the very essence of identifying with a male equates to the fact that a woman is being abused. And what that is showing is that there is a pathology and there is a belief that many of us women hold, whether it's conscious, subconscious, whether it was passed down from our maybe family or we had bad experiences, but there is this underlying belief that we hold that men are naturally violent and they're naturally evil. And we have to hide ourselves from them. And if we identify with them, then we are now putting ourselves in harm's way. And like I said, again, it is those kinds of mindset, it's that thinking that will lead you into really, really bad outcomes, especially when it comes to relationships. I see Crimson here. The deal is that Black women have never been guilty of any measure of wrongdoing or culpability in the way our community is now. They just innocent, period. And that's literally not possible. This is another contradiction. So we can't claim to be a matriarchy. You can't claim to be a matriarchy in the leaders and complaining about being the leaders and complaining about not having headship or whatever. You can't do that and then also escape the responsibility of being the leader. So either it's a matriarchy and women are running and women are ruling and they accept the consequences of what that means, or it's something else. But you can't be the leader. You can't be in charge, but then also now put all the responsibility on the people who are under you, or put all the responsibility on the people who are not in charge. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Anybody who's worked in any organization, if you worked in the corporate world, you know, there's presidents, vice presidents, there's managers. If something goes wrong, you know what I mean? The manager is going to be held responsible. The manager can come to you and say, what did you do wrong? But at the end of the day, manager oftentimes, or the manager's manager, they're going to be held responsible. So like I said, you cannot claim to be a leader. We cannot say, oh, this is a matriarchy, yada, 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 yada. But then blame men for having all the control and power, and then blame men for all of the results. If we were in control, if we were in charge, then we are responsible for where things are today. Period. And that's assuming it's true. Right? So again, you're making some bars. And that's what I'm saying. It's like the fact that this conversation exists as if Black women are over here and Black men are over there is utter nonsense. Because again, if you just look at literally nature, it takes a man and a woman to come together to create a human. A man and woman have to come together to create a human. We're not asexual. We're not, I can't think of the term where you just go and reproduce yourself without anything else. Like, two people, opposite gender, have to come together to procreate. So nature alone teaches us that we are not separate. We're just not. And we can kind of try to shift blame and try to say it was his fault, their fault, them over there, them. We can do all that we want. But like I said, nature has a funny way of reminding us of what is actually going on. And it doesn't help anybody when we are not taking responsibility for ourselves. So I'm going to move on because there's a few other comments there I wanted to get to. You get y'all feel on here? Get those likes up. Y'all likes are free. Also, please show support to the show. You can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Sade. Also, feel free to send in your super chats. I will be mindful to read and acknowledge all super chats. Also, as I said, y'all, if you like this content, ooh, looks like I got Mr. Bobby Wright with a 2 on the super chat. It says Martin Luther Shade. You're funny. Like I said, if y'all like this content, if you like things that are challenging the status quo, or a platform that is willing to have these open and honest conversations, I will need your support. Because y'all know there's a lot of haters out there, and these kinds of conversations aren't always the most popular. So if you like this, if you want to see more of this, please show your support. Hit the Cash App, hit Venmo, hit the super chat, hit the like button, all of that. So let's continue. Let's continue with this one. Okay. So it says, but triggered, Black men need to protect male-identified women at all costs. All these other women that hates Black men can literally die. Dang. We have no remorse for the Black woman divested that. Okay, well, so I'm just now seeing that. I will say this. I will never promote violence, and I will never promote or wish the death upon any person. I'm just now seeing that comment. That I don't, even people I don't agree with, even divestors, even swirler. Like I'm never one to wish violence or to wish the harmful wrongdoing on any person, because I don't wish an untimely death on anybody. That's just who I am. And I honestly hope when I have these conversations and when I go after certain people, I go after divestiture ideology, I go after double standards. When I do all these different things, it's not because I hate these people or because I hope that they suffer. It's because these are the things that are hurting women. And I actually want to see better results. And I understand that, I can't make decisions for people. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. That old saying goes. But I feel like at the very least, the information needs to be out there, because there are young women out there they're only seeing one side. And I think if nothing else, if the information is out there, then a person can choose. They can choose to maybe want to do better. They can choose to want to believe a lie. They can. But I'm like, at the very least, I think a different perspective can be out there. So young women, you know what I mean? Women who are looking for a different answer, they have that option. So like I said, I put this stuff out there not because I hate anybody, because I don't hate divestors. I'm not happy when I see any of them literally divest. Like, it doesn't make me happy. It makes me I'm sad for them. And I'm like, okay, well, hopefully we can let this be an example for those of what's going on. So I wanted to make that clear. I don't wish harm and I don't wish violence on anybody. I know, sadly, sometimes people can make mistakes that do have lethal repercussions. And I think that's why it's important we have honest conversations. So hopefully we can avoid that, if nothing else, for younger generations or for young women who are coming of age. And sadly, what's popular right now is all this male bashing. That's what's popular. And especially as young women, we want to fit in. Many of us do. That's what's popular. And anything otherwise will be seen as it's uncool. Anything otherwise is like you're breaking the sister code. But like I said, if they can hopefully see women who are willing to challenge the narrative, and women who are willing to say, hey, this may be popular, this may be what everybody else is saying, but it doesn't mean it's healthy. If that can reach just a handful of people, it's worth it. Again, shout out to John Ivy on the $5 super chat. Right. People in their right mind don't resort to violence. Absolutely. And like I said, this is never a platform that I will ever support or ever promote. That's not what we do here. So like I said, when I report on some of those different situations where women end up being harmed, it's not because I'm celebrating or saying, see, this is what her actions did. It's more of like, okay, guys, let's not this be in vain. Let's talk about it. And let's see if we can decode maybe some of the things that happened to get to this place. So hopefully you don't make the same mistakes. So that's always my heart. And I want you guys to know that. I see, shout out to the kosher clinician. It says, really sad, but male-identified women were the norm in the past. It's part of honor and service. Keep up the good work, young lady. I appreciate you. If I'm not mistaken, I think you called in. It was a really fun combo. Yeah, all good. So okay, I want to move on to a few more comments. Yeah, so like I said, we do not promote. I want to make that clear. We don't promote violence here. I see this. Everyone becoming male-identified means nothing if none of you are pushing to roll back the feminist laws. Yes, y'all. And this is actually something else I touched upon, where and I want to go a little bit more into this deeply, because I don't pretend to be an expert on family court. I'm not. So that would be one of my goals, would be to have somebody who's maybe an expert in just, family court, divorce court, and some of the different things in general that are impacting families, how it's impacting men versus women. That is something that I would like to do more in the future. But I did, I did talk about this, where it's like, I mean, well, what does this mean? What does this mean if we really, 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 truly had equality? How would this look on all levels? And the reality is the laws are not necessarily equal. And sometimes they're more in favor of the women. And there's men out there right now who are just like, you know what? Because of the way the laws have changed, and because of the very nature that not only do we have women who are afraid to identify with me, Now, if I put myself in a situation to where I could be harmed and I could lose my hard-earned money by, by legally committing to a woman who doesn't even identify with me, like that's a bad deal. And it's like these are the kind of the different things we don't talk about. Like men generally are very logical, So even when it comes to like marriage, when it comes to family and the different risks that generally men now have when they do get into long-term relationships, when they do sign a legal contract, when they do marry, we have to understand now as women, especially in modern times, that it's not just like, oh, men don't want to commit. That's not true. We talked about this in my previous video where there's a different study that showed that men, Black men in particular, are actually about twice as likely they want to commit when it comes to marriage and long-term relationships. But with that, as things have changed, as laws have changed, that in combination with feminism and how the different cultural expectations of who does what has changed, they have a lot at risk. They have a lot at risk. That's not to say women don't, but men in particular have a lot at risk, especially when it comes to marriage, when it comes to what could this mean. And so I think there's now men who more than anything are looking at all these different things and they're just like, do I even want to be a part of this? Is this a good deal? So again, I think he made a really interesting point. That is something that I'd really like to touch upon more with an expert. So if you guys know anybody, let me know. I think that'd be a fun one. Okay. So it says, or maybe teaching men. So here's another one. So this is the response to male-identified, or maybe teaching men on how to respect and get along with women, considering they were socialized to think we're less and much more worthless and useless than them. I mean, do you not see the comments from these males online? So here's her perspective, right? Here's her perspective that, men are just taught how to disrespect women, period. And they're socialized to think that we're less and that they're much worthless and useless than them. Obviously, I'm trying to think how to address this because, well, first of all, I don't believe that's true, right? I don't believe that's true. Now, if we go into history and we look at different cultures, yes, across the board, Western cultures, Eastern cultures, like, yeah, there are cultures where it could arguably be considered misogynist for sure. But I think in America, if we're looking at the way today, especially the last like 50, 60 years, I just don't think I believe that's true. All you got to do is, what is that documentary? I think it's Misandry in the Media, right? Where it basically looks at all the different ways men are portrayed as like, either they're the bumbling idiots or, they need the women to save them, or like how many, think about it, how many romance novels or how many sitcoms have you and I seen as women, those of you who are listening, where men are just, they're kind of like the agreeable one. The woman's leading the charge. The woman is the one making the decisions. Like there's just so many sitcoms out there that I think kind of reinforce this narrative. Even if you think of the Cosby Show, right? Which I love that, but even if you think of that dynamic, and he was like, there was times that he was kind of like, taking on the bumbling idiot role, and then Claire Huxtable was kind of like, okay, she was like the smart one, and she, like there's all these, some of them are subtle, and then some of them are blatant. But just certainly, if you look at the media, the way men and women are portrayed, no, usually women are portrayed as like they're the saviors, right? Or they're the ones who, if it wasn't for them, then things would fall apart. The family would fall apart. Rarely do I see it seen the other way. So I know misogyny obviously does exist in certain cultures. We can't say that it's like that 100% across the board. That's just simply not true. When you understand history and you understand, especially this different cultural differences, you have cultures that are, the relationship between men and women it's very symbiotic, and women and men are very much are working together when it comes to politics, when it comes to how the society runs. So no, misogyny is not a natural tendency across the board for all cultures. And I don't know that I would agree that men are just taught to naturally dishonor women. I don't know that I believe that. Now, referring to the comments that we see in there, yeah, we see some crazy comments in there from men, and we also see some crazy comments in there from women. So if we were just to go based upon the comments section, if we were just to go based upon the comment section, I could easily say all these women today, all these women today hate men. They don't know how to respect men, and yeah, they hate men. They don't know how to respect men, and they're not confident about themselves. I can make this sweeping statement that every single woman today, based upon the comments I see in social media, doesn't like the way they look because the fact that they're not even willing to put a picture of themselves on there. They don't like the way they look. They hate men based upon their comments, and they're not in relationships. Like I can make that sweeping statement. But like I said, looking at a few comments, I think to try to draw to a conclusion about the general state of affairs, I know that's always a good idea. Shout out to Chief Rocco with the 5 in the super chat. I see the lead attorney. So I think I'm one of his, what is it? Like Patreon member, but I would love to get him on. That'd be amazing. Also, I know he has a pretty large channel, so I don't know. I don't know if he would come on, but I mean, it'd be great if he would. I think that'd be great. Goals, right? I see. Keep up the good work, sister. I appreciate the $1.99 in the super chat. I appreciate it. So, guys, if you're on here, get those likes up, y'all. Get those likes up. Likes are free. Also, show some love to the Cash App. Show love to Cash App or to the Venmo or to the super chat. So I'm gonna continue on with these comments because, like I said, there was a lot here. So, we have Reborn Doll Playtime. This person I blocked. Like I blocked them because they were just sharing all kinds of stuff. Listen, y'all, I don't exist in an echo chamber. I am open to hearing. I'll just report them. Unwanted commercial. Yeah, no, let's do that one. Yep, that one. So I've already blocked them. But they came back. They came back under some other profile. Because like I said, listen, I don't exist in an echo chamber. I am really open to hearing other information. And I'm also open to being wrong. I do my best to try to show statistical data and analysis that I believe is correct and that I believe at the very least is thoroughly examined. It meant a ton when Dr. Tiazon Johnson shared my video and said, this was great information in here, great stats. Like he's an actual PhD. So that meant a ton when he gave me a stamp of approval a few days ago regarding my divested illusion video. So like I said, it's really important to me that I share information that I feel like is backed by science and is coming from an honest place. With that, if I miss something, if you guys have something better, I'm always open to hearing things. But what I don't like to do is attack people's character. I don't like to attack people's character. I don't like the name calling. I don't like the cursing. That's unnecessary. It's unnecessary. You can have an honest and adult conversation without having to get into name calling. That's what children do. So I blocked her, or whoever that. I don't even know if that's a her. Low key, I feel like that's a troll who's some non-black troll in there that's just trying to spew hate because the things that they say just don't even seem consistent. So they're blocked. Yeah, if Dr. Tizon Johnson gives you kudos, they're doing something right. I absolutely agree. That was a good one. I see there's Say It Louder. Oh, so shout out to Crimson Cure. She also, I'm gonna read this one because she always drops some gems. I love this post and I see many who have no idea what being so-called male identified actually means. It's being used as a derogatory term for Black women who emphasize and have a working understanding of male nature and will work with it in a harmonious fashion. Again, this goes back to my original point. If we have adopted the lie, right, that being male, identifying with a maleness, that maleness inherently is evil or maleness inherently is violent and abusive. If we take that on, then of course we're not going to want to work with that. Of course we're not going to want to submit to any man in our life. Of course we're going to see being male identified as abusive. And what I've seen in a lot of these comments is it's revealed to me that many women, whether they know it consciously or subconsciously, they have adopted the idea that maleness is inherently abusive, that men are naturally going to be violent or aggressive, and that they're naturally going to want to control, or that essentially who God made men to be is to be oppressive, is to be, like I said, violent, is to invoke harm. That's who they are by nature. That's who they are. That's just That's just it. That's just it. And that's what I'm saying. That is really toxic. Because like I said, there are certainly men who are like that. Yes. But that's not what God didn't create men to be. That's not his intention for men. There are aspects of maleness that are godly, that God intended, that God created, that intended for them to lead in the family, intended them to have a level of authority, intended them to have a level of leadership when it comes to how to raise communities. That those are God-given attributes. And I think when we just blanketly say something that God created is just inherently evil, not only does it become, we are undermining ourselves, because like I said again, we come from men, no matter how we put it. But also now we are not even giving ourselves the ability to be reflective and honest about our own, who we are and what we've done. Because there's also aspects of women that are beautiful and divine and that are God-given, just like men. And there are also aspects of women that unchecked can be rebellious, can be evil, can be detrimental. So we can't act like everything over there is wrong and everything over here is right. That's called denial. That's called delusion. So as she said, I love how she mentioned the idea of harmoniously working together, because that's actually what's intended. It's not supposed to be a competition. The very fact that you have men and women competing speaks to a deeper, I think, spiritual cancer. Because why would you compete against something that's supposed to complement you? So I think she makes a good point there. Then it says perhaps they would like the term reality identified. Right. Many are so out of touch with reality that it's not only sad, but extremely problematic. Black women are never at fault for anything. And that's the part that blows my mind. Bingo. If the community as a whole is in state of emergency, how much of it are Black women accountable for? What percentage of accountability do they accept, and what will they do about it? Again, as I mentioned before, we cannot talk about being a matriarchy or complaining about being a matriarchy. We can't accept that as a truth and then at the same time act as if we have zero responsibility in the results that are happening today. If it is indeed a matriarchy and the women are the ones who have been in control for some time, they are therefore responsible for their leadership. They are therefore responsible for the leadership because they've been the lead. So you can't be a leader, but then want to escape all of the responsibilities associated with being a leader. Which is it? Which is it? And so that's what I'm saying. No matter how you spin it, there has got to be a level of accountability. Nobody is saying that men are 100% perfect, that they're gods and they can do no wrong. Nobody has ever said that. Nobody is promoting you need to just get with any old man, and if he beats you or abuses you or is violent to you or talks down to you, that you're just supposed to accept it. Nobody ever says that. None of us who are even on the side have ever promoted that. That's abuse. That's codependency. I'm not about being codependent. So sometimes we take all these extremes. We just take these blanket extreme sides to overlook the fact that we have got to be accountable for our side, and we have got to be realistic about where we're at, who we are, what we are doing, what we are not doing. So, and that's what I'm saying. You cannot be a matriarchy, say that you're a matriarchy and be in charge, and then want to escape the responsibility associated with being in charge. It doesn't work. Which is it? Choose your side. Then it says, now some will say they didn't. Okay. Some will say they didn't say women are perfect, but I've also yet to hear any of them specify the issues of the woman from a non-victimhood perspective, and a perspective where Black men are not also blamed for her issues. Right. Right. So it's like, okay, for those who can acknowledge, okay, it's not perfect. Women aren't perfect. It's just a step in the right direction, but it's like, okay, where can you improve? Where can you improve? I'll start. Here's one area where we can improve as women, as Black women in particular. Honesty. I'll say it again. Here's the thing. And I've said this before, for whatever reason, we can argue why or how or in which way, but it just seems like anytime reality, facts, historical facts, whatever, anytime that is shared in a way that does not put women in a positive light, then you're just attacking. And it's like, no, historical realities, facts, that's not attacking. That's just making an honest assessment of what's going on. For example, I shared that short yesterday, right? where I broke down, the also common narrative that Black men are creating all these children out of wedlock. When in reality, I think it's about like 16% when you really take into account the men who are single and childless, then the men who are actually married. Like when you take into account all that, it's a very small percentage of Black men who could be really blamed for creating all these kids out of wedlock, right? That in comparison to women who just generally, there's just more women who have more kids and more women are single parents. There's, no matter how you spin it, that is a reality. Now, is that bashing women? Is that not holding men accountable? No, that is a statistical reality. If we cannot accurately assess what's going on, how are we ever going to be able to talk about the ways to improve? There's no way around it. There's no way around it. And here's the thing. I think some of us at our core, we just have a rebellious spirit. We just have a rebellious spirit about it. We kind of see the same thing, even if I think of like some of the different biblical narratives, we kind of see this theme of like rebellious spirit. We think of Eve, right? And how there is divine qualities and there are rebellious qualities, and how some of us are walking in that fallen nature of being rebellious. And we just can't accept when we're wrong. And even when you're called on your stuff, oh, it's his fault. It's like, no, you're the one that laid down and decided to have kids. You gave that person access to your womb, period. Now, this isn't about shaming. It's not about, It's like, if you did it, people make mistakes. People do things and they look back and they're like, man, I'm better. Like even Sister God is talking about this, where she's like, yeah, look, I did something. Of course, she's not saying your child is a mistake, but there's things that I did when I was younger that I would have done differently. That's a part of the human experience. So no one's trying to shame you for necessarily saying, okay, I did this. But at the same time, you have also got to take responsibility for what it is that you've done so that you can actually move forward and be better. And if we are at the point where we can't even accurately assess the situation without getting in our feelings, there is no hope for change. You're just in a rebellious spirit, period. You're in a rebellious spirit. And I think a lot of us literally have taken on that rebellious spirit. And that's why I say so many times that I think there's women out there, it's like, at the core, you have got to really get honest with yourself. You have got to invite the spirit of truth in your life and ask the spirit of truth to search you. Start there. Because if you can't even do that, if you can't even have an honest conversation with yourself and say, call a spade, and say, okay, I don't know, I'm 300 pounds overweight. I'm not thick. I'm obese and unhealthy and I'm at risk. If you can't say that, if you gotta make excuses, again, I'm not talking about that small percentage of people who have like PCOS or some of those conditions where it's like it does mess your metabolism. I'm talking about you. I'm talking about the person who refuses to be healthy, refuses to eat well, refuses to do anything that would put themselves in a better light, whether it's go take a walk, eat fresh vegetables. You're eating takeout all the time. You know what I mean? You don't want to go to the gym. You don't even want to walk around the block. You're on junk food all the time. You're doing that. You're doing things. You're feeding yourself garbage. And then instead of saying, man, I'm treating myself bad. I'm treating myself like garbage. Now you're calling yourself thick and curvy. It's like, no. And this is coming from women that I talk to who are 400 pounds overweight, right? They're like, no, that is unhealthy. That's unhealthy. If you can't say that isn't healthy, then what are we even doing? What's what I'm saying? This is one area where we as women can start. Just start learning how to have honest conversations. Start learning how to call a spade a spade. Start learning how to be truthful with ourselves. Because without that, we can point the fingers and blame it on that person. We're never going to get to the results that we want. And here's the thing about it. Here's the cold thing about it. Even if you reject the truth, if you reject what is facts, if you reject the obvious reality, your life will remind you time and time again what's going on. Your life will remind you. And that's the cool thing about it. Because I'll see people sometimes in the comments, they're just fighting, just like, no, you're wrong. No, you're mammy, you're pick me. No, this isn't. They're just fighting. They are resistant to anything honest. But the cold thing about it is the truth has a way of following you. It has a way of following you. You go home, you look at your life, you get a bill maybe, get a doctor's report, get a phone call. The truth has a way of following you, and that's the cold part. So it's like you can deny it all you want, but you can't sleep at night, like I said. certain things in your life are just never working. The truth has a way of following you. So that's the cold thing about it. Anyways, yes, if you're on here, y'all get those likes up. Those likes, y'all like are free. Also, I want to give a shout out to wait, it's coming up. I want to give a shout out to Chris for the 20 on the Cash App. Chris for 20 for the Cash App. I see great show. I appreciate you. I appreciate you for being here. Again, if you were on here, get those likes up. Get those likes up. Show support on Cash App or Venmo. I will also be sure to acknowledge and read all super chats, y'all. Again, if you like this content, if you would like to see more content like this that is honest, that is going against the status quo, I will need your help and I will need your support. Y'all already know that these kinds of conversations are not always so popular. But if you like it and you want to get the message out there, right? You don't want to see women being lied to all the time, misandry being promoted and being unchecked. You like what this channel is about, show your support, y'all. Show your support. Hit the Cash App, Venmo, hit the super chat. So I want to move on a little bit longer and then we'll wrap this thing up. Okay. Yeah, so I thought Crimson Cure, what she said, bars. So here's a detractor. Okay. This is big pick me energy. Should men become women identified as well so that we all can get along? I'm a Black woman, got married at 22 and am still married 12 years later. Didn't know my daddy and my mom was a I don't need a man lady. So by all means, I should be one of the statistics in the Black community, but I'm not. I also didn't meet or keep my husband by treating him like a baby. 100 Black men and Black women need therapy and lots of self-work, or this will just keep turning. Telling Black women to become mal-identified is ridiculous without Black men healing first. It creates more space for abuse because this is just how I am. Okay. So again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier. I appreciate her point. You know, like I said, if somebody can be respectful, and share their rebuttal, whether I agree or not, but they can do it without name calling, whatever. Well, she did call me a pick me, so that's a name call, but it is what it is. I'm not a, this is not an echo chamber. Now, a couple of things that, again, to me are interesting. So this is big pick me energy. Again, the fact that the term pick me, a woman who was picked, the fact that that is an insult is idiotic. Every woman wants to be picked. How many women in the comment section, how many women in that comment section, if I posted a picture of a woman proposing to a man, would be outraged? How many women would be outraged? Are outraged at the fact of women proposing to men. So why are we making something negative that we all want? We all want to be picked. Make that make sense. Make that make sense. Because when a woman picks, she shouldn't do it. It's like, oh, that's just so disrespectful. Oh my gosh, she's just settling. I can't believe she did it. No, but most women do not celebrate when they see other women picking men. Women want to be picked. That's what I'm saying. These insults are idiotic. It shows, I think, the BS that we believe, because all women want to be picked. All women want a man that they desire, right? All heterosexual women, right? Who are attracted to men, strong men, they want to be picked. They want that man is that he picked me. They want that. So let's stop the cap. We all know it. Anyways, so should men become woman identified as well so that we can all get along? Again, what she's referring to is heterosexuality. I don't understand why heterosexuality is such an insult. But I'll continue. She says she's been married for 12 years. You know, all I can assume is that what she's saying is true. I always question people with nameless, faceless avatars. I always question that because you can create whatever persona you want. So that could be true. That could not be true. I've seen people in here who say that they are pro-Black love, and then they spew diverse talking points and talking about how Black men are trash and you need to marry it. Like literally, there's one in particular. She's like, "Oh, I love Black love. I love Black love," and then she continued to comment on my page. And everything she was saying was how black men are horrible and that white men make better options. And I'm just like, I don't care who you date. If you want to date, marry, interracial, whatever. But it's like, you literally said you're pro black love. So that's what I'm saying. I can only take what she's saying with, with a grain of salt. She says that she's been married for 12 years. We see no profile pic. I don't know anything about her. It is what it is. And she says she shouldn't be the statistic. I also didn't meet or keep my husband by treating him like a baby. So being male identified, according to this definition, is treating a man like a baby. Where does treating somebody like a baby come in? How is that associated with being male identified? Again, if we break this down denotatively, male identified, identifying with a male, identifying with a male, literally what it means. How does identifying with a male now translate to you are treating him like a baby? What does that reveal? What does that reveal about the way that we see and view men? What does that reveal about the way that we view and see men? And again, this is one of the most interesting things to me about this whole post. All these different rebuttals, to me, it is showing some of these subconscious misandrist aggression, or I think some of the misogyny that goes unchecked. I am not saying men are perfect. I am not saying men should be treated like baby. Nor did I say that. If y'all saw what I actually said, all I said is if you actually want a strong man that's going to lead, you probably should know how to identify with him. And then I heard all these, oh my gosh, you're teaching women how to be abused. You're teaching women how to treat men like babies. What is that showing about what they believe about men? They automatically assume that men are going to be violent. They automatically assume that men are going to be lazy. That's what's that revealing. That is what that is revealing. And to me, y'all, that's crazy. Shout out to Matthew for the 5 on the super sticker, y'all. If you're on here, get those likes up. We are talking about why male-identified mammies are winning. Now, I'm going to get to that point. I'm going to get to that point soon. But I think this comment section to me was like, it was so revealing. That's why I wanted to go through it, y'all. So she says, nowhere in it did I treat him like a baby. Nowhere did I ever even insinuate or encourage women to treat grown men like babies. If anything, quite the opposite. I said, if you want men who protect, who provide, right? Provide structure, stability, babies don't do that. So I'm like, either she didn't read through the text, or again, going through with your understanding of what maleness means, which based upon this sounds like there's a little bit of misandry there. That's just my perspective, y'all. Could be wrong. That's just my perspective. Says black men and black women need therapy. I agree. And lots of self-work, or this will keep turning. I agree. Telling black women to become well-identified is ridiculous without black men healing first. It creates more space for abuse because this is just how I am. So again, the underlying assumption there is that black men are abusive. Black men are abusive. As if black women are not abusive. Didn't that report just come out? I shared it, where it's like women are more aggressive in relationships. Women are aggressive in relationships. Women are more aggressive. They are initiating violence in relationships. Women are initiating more violence in relationships. Women are initiating more violent relationships, y'all. They are initiating it. Now, when men are violent, yes, it does lead to more physical harm because men are generally stronger. But we have got to start questioning this narrative as if men are the only aggressors. Women are also the aggressors. Yes, I can agree with you that women and black men need therapy. They need spiritual healing. They need all of that. I can agree with you there. But I think the underlying message, as if women are automatically going to be in positions where they are going to be controlled and abused, as if women themselves don't have the capacity to do so. Again, what is that saying about what we believe about the men in our community? And what is that saying about our ability also to take accountability for ourselves? No one here is promoting a codependent relationship where the man makes all the decisions, where the woman is a doormat, where he's abusive, where he's controlling, or where he's a baby and she's. No one is promoting that. So it's funny because like I saw all these little tropes, I saw all these little stereotypes infused in that one statement. And I saw this over and over and over and over again. And again, this is what I'm seeing about modern women today, I think in particular, is that we have taken on these misandrist ideas, and then we have applied them. We have applied them as if this is just the truth for everybody. This is the truth for all men. This is the truth for all women. We're perpetually victims, and they are perpetually aggressors. And that's just simply not always the case. So again, if you're on here, y'all get those likes up, get those likes up. Support to the show. Hit the Cash App or Venmo, y'all. Cash App or Venmo. Also, please show support to the super chat. Again, if you like this content, if you like content like this and want to see ideas, content creators that are putting out positive information and that are challenging the status quo and trying to put truthful, honest, realistic expectations out there, what's happening, please show support to the show. Like I said, this kind of stuff is not always the most popular, but one way you can help is to show support. Hit the super chat. Also, hit the like button. Likes are free. Share it. Comment. All the above. So we're getting down to it, y'all. I'm starting to get hungry. I'm starting to get hungry. Okay. Okay, let's see. So yeah, so this is evidently a married woman, but she thinks that saying that you're male identified is saying that women should treat men like babies. That's her understanding of it. Again, what does that say about her understanding of what does that say about her understanding of how men are innately? Continue. So here's one. As a normal heterosexual woman, I love and have no problems with getting along with men. However, I don't want to be so identified to the point I will defend men at all costs while constantly throwing women under the bus. This is what you, Danica, and the rest of your ILK do. It has been disturbing hearing you, Danica, make fun of the few Black women having vicious crimes being committed towards them by white men. You never once acknowledge what Black men have done to Black women. That's why I never be friends with women like you, Danica, etc. Because if a man hits me, you would ask me what I did. Once again, you pick me mammies are dangerous. Okay. As far as men leading, providing, protecting, Black men fail at that. I have never seen any other race of men complain and blame everything and everyone for their failing to step up as men and produce it. It is weak. Why would any man depend on a woman to let him lead? Even though white women created the feminist movement, I did not stop white women from showing white women and everyone else who's boss. Right. Okay. So here's another detractor. I've seen her in my comments a lot. A lot of stuff she doesn't like. She always is saying that everything I'm doing is horrible and bad, but she continues to comment. Whatever. So a couple of things. Shout out to Danica. I don't know if she's here, but shout out to Danica. I have never once heard Danica promote, encourage, or laugh about or promote propaganda related to Black men and white women in relationships. I've never heard that. Now, I haven't seen all her content, but just from the conversations I've had with her and who I know her to be, that ain't what she about. Now, as for me, says to the point you will defend men at all costs. This is a dishonest person. And Donna McIntosh, you're welcome to respond. But based upon this, either this is dishonest or you are ill-informed. But there's no way you can look at any of my content and say that I have defended men at all costs. That's just not true. Literally, O'Shea Duke Jackson came on a little over a week ago and had an entire section on the different ways men need to step up. I had Obsidian and Omawali come on and talk about Black men and talk about the different ways they were debating, but talk about the different ways need to step up. I had another content creator come on and literally they were essentially giving their critique of the manosphere. I had another one come, so it's there's no way and say that I 100% always identify with men. That's somebody who's being dishonest or they're ill-informed. Or they've already come in with their understanding about who I am and they are making their own assessments. It's just not true. It's just not true. I have too much content against that. Now here's what I'm saying. And I've said this before and I'll say this again. It seems to me that anytime you share a statistical reality that is not in favor of women, you are being a mammy pick-me. And here's why I address some of these. I go for the sacred cow, if you will. I go for the thing that is commonly misrepresented. The reason I do that is because I think some of these ideas that are harmful, they need to be challenged. I started the Black Men Build That series because I've heard a lot of times Black men don't build. And for young girls and for young boys coming up, they need to know that yes, although there's a lot of things, there's a lot of issues that we as the Black community have experienced. There's a lot of bad actors out there. There's so many contributions that have been made. There's so many things. We wouldn't even be having this conversation right now. I wouldn't even be able to have this live. She wouldn't even be able to go and share that comment or share that critique if it wasn't for Black men who were waging war during times of slavery, who were doing different things, going and buying their children and buying their women out of slavery. If they weren't working together with their women to try to escape, to try to get us to a better position. And so we oftentimes overlook the different push and the different sacrifices people, men and women, have made. And now we're at a place where we're fighting each other. And I bet you for our great grandparents were looking at what we were at now, they might be ashamed. They might be saying, we did all this. We risked our lives for this. What's going on? So this is why I created series like that. Because if you're saying Black men, oh, they don't build, they don't this, what is that saying about that little Black boy about the way he sees himself? When in reality, the very internet that you have, the phone that you have, the light bulb that you have, all these things that we depend upon are because of the contributions of Black men. What is that saying about your self-esteem? So that's why I started that. Does that make me male identified? No. It makes me somebody who's being willing to honestly assess and talk about what's going on. If I address the claims about, oh, Black men are going around here making all these baby daddies. We look at the stats and we find that Black women actually have more children out of wedlock and a higher level of STDs. Is that me saying, oh, you're not holding men accountable? No, that is a statistical reality. And then it is damaging, not only for you to promote a lie, but for you to now promote this false narrative about what's not going on. So again, this is what I'm saying. People were oftentimes called pick-me mammies because we're not feeding into the lie. We're not making it seem as if all men have, all men are the problem. Yes, there are men out there who have done bad things. No one ever has not acknowledged that. But we spend far too much time, first of all, promoting things that are wrong. It would be different. It would be different if some of these things that are these common tropes were true. If these common tropes were true, then we could have a conversation. A lot of this stuff is just BS. It just falls. The whole argument falls under just a basic statistical analysis. And if me acknowledging facts and acknowledging reality makes me a male-identified pick-me or a male-identified mammy, I will happily accept that. If me acknowledging the facts and me acknowledging the truth makes me a male-identified pick-me, I will happily accept that. Happily. So, but I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna finish this quote because, yeah, I guess if you don't say men are the worst, you are a mammy. Exactly. Mm-hmm. I've never said men are horrible. All Black men are the problem. And mammy. So since you never once acknowledge what black men have done to Black women, false. Like I said, you cannot have looked at my content and come to that conclusion. False. Also, be general. What exactly are you referring to? Just making, and that's the one thing I noticed too about about a lot of these attractors. They speak in generalities. They don't speak in clear, concise. It'd be one thing if we're just like, okay, you never addressed, I don't know, the percentage of men that X, Y, and Z, A, B, and C. It'd be one thing if we were speaking in clear, concise rebuttals where I can say, okay, no, that's valid. There's been a handful who have maybe tried, but then I look and it's like it falls apart because they're like, no, that's just a blatant lie. Or it's like, or you're not providing stat. You're just, so like I said, most of the time, they're speaking in generalities, which at that point, what that means is that you're believing something that you were likely told. You're believing something that isn't necessarily reflective of the truth. This is why I would never be friends with a woman like you. Oh, and let me see. Oh, and it says, it's been disturbing hearing you and Danica make fun of the few Black women having, again, this is somebody who's dishonest. I'm like, I don't know how I'm reading this, but it's dishonest. Never once did I make fun. Never once did you see me make fun in person or on my videos. My last videos, I said, women, this is really sad. This is really upsetting. I said that for Way J Black, the black men who wouldn't kill and who went and shot up the different women. I said that I was like, this is unfortunate. This is sad for the women. He was obviously in the wrong. He obviously had some mental concerns going on. I said that for Lawrence Smithfield. I said this is upsetting. I said that. So this is a dishonest person. This is a person that's actually not listening to my content. There's no way you can listen to my content and come to that conclusion. Now, the last one I had with Asia Maynard, I said, hey guys, this is upsetting. This is now a woman that has 4 kids. They no longer have moms. What we need to do is we got to be honest. First of all, you got to be safe when you're doing these different dating situations. You got to be really, really, really safe. You got to be really cautious. And also, women, by the way, if you do want to date or marry out, I have no smoke for you. You've got to be honest and realistic about what that means. We do not live in a colorblind society. We simply do not. And anytime we want to believe that garbage and BS, something happens to remind us. So that was essentially my position on that. I was like, this is sad. This is upsetting. I hope her family gets justice. This is another situation where we are seeing time and time and time again that racial dynamics are at play almost all the time when it comes to these different institutional, these laws, like race dynamics are at play. And anytime we want to think we're colorblind when it comes to law, when it comes to justice, that is always taken into consideration. And I'm like, to ignore that is just being denial. That was my position. I didn't laugh and say, oh, look at her, she deserved it. I didn't do that. I never promote that, and I will never promote that. So this is somebody who's being dishonest. Or like I said, at very least, chooses to be uninformed. Then she says black men at fail, leading, providing, protecting. Yeah, again, lies, because the very fact that she has the privilege of doing this is because of black men who died and suffered, who work with black women who died and suffered. So like I said, our great-great-grandparents would probably look at us and be ashamed for this nonsense, that we could spew such hatred and dishonor the people who worked hard, the men who shared our complexion, who worked hard, who sacrificed their lives to get here. They would probably be ashamed. I'm not even gonna lie. And that makes me sad. And so this is why I talk about some of these different things. Because I'm like, ladies, if we're just believing this, we can have whatever smoke. You can not like me. You can be mad at me. That's fine. But at the end of the day, the truth will stay with you. Your life will continue to remind you of what is actually going on. And we're better off acknowledging. So yeah, and like I said, there were so many more in there. Honestly, y'all, if you're on here, get those likes up. Also, shout out to the super chat. I see Matthew Miller. It says many black women have normalized misandry, self-hate, and dysfunction. Yep. Bingo. That's another hand clap right there. That is another hand clap. I agree with you. It's sad. I don't like it. It's sad. Nobody has ever said that I've heard. You've never heard this on my platform. I have never said, and I will never say, women, all black men are perfect. All black men are gods. Black men can do no wrong. All black men are to be worshipped. I have never said that. That's nonsense. That's ridiculous. No one who is an adult would promote that. That's weird. So it's like they make these grand sweeping statements that are not based upon anything I've ever said, which shows me that a lot of people aren't actually listening. Or if they are listening, they're emotionally reacting. And they've already come in with their understanding of what I'm saying, and they're not willing to hear anything different. Because it's like, nowhere have I even suggested that. So also, I think there was another super chat I want to get in there. I see, but Mr. Bobby, right? I hear the sorry. I got messed up. I hear the frustration in your voice. Now imagine if you had more testosterone than estrogen. This is what black men have had to pick from for 60 years. Oof. You know what? That's why, honestly, I will say I ain't got no smoke. I ain't got no smoke for somebody who decides to leave, expand the horizons to find a woman to work with. I ain't got no smoke for it. No smoke. Anyways, y'all, the likes are free. Show support to the show. Hit me on the Cash App or Venmo. Also, please send in your love and support through super chats. So I'm trying to see if there's anything else. There was a lot in here. There's a lot in here, but y'all, I'm getting hungry and I want to wrap this up. So yeah, y'all. There was, like I said, to me, this was just so interesting. It was like a case study because I was saying all these different things. Let me see. Okay, maybe I'll read this last one. This one over here. Here's another one from a lovely lady. It says there is a difference, y'all. There is a difference between being cooperative and male identified. Okay. Uh, that's just like Black people who are white identified. So I've never ever heard the term really thrown around being white identified. Um, it's not thrown around nearly as much as male identified. It's not even really in the conversation. So I don't know if that's a fair comparison. But anyways, it says that's just like Black people who are white identified, meaning that they put the needs and feelings of white people before their own. A lot of Black folks do that. Black women in particular shouldn't be male identified because it's against our own best interest, which should be clear to anyone who's seeing what's going on in our communities right now. So, okay. So here is my issue with that framing. Again, this kind of promotes this idea of division, that in order for Black women to do well, it has to be at the expense of Black men. Or in order for Black men to do well, it has to be at the expense of Black women, as if we are in competition. That comment right there showed me that there is this assumption and this idea that we are always in competition. And that's the issue in and of itself. If we see ourselves as at odds, and if we see ourselves that either I have to be right or you have to be right, or either I'm doing well or you're doing well, and for me to do well is for you to do bad, or for you to do well is for me to do bad, that is a problem. And of course you don't want to submit to that, because to submit to that would be for you to do wrong. Of course you don't want to identify with that, because for you to identify with your enemy would for you to be hurt. So it's like, again, what are a lot of these comments showing? As I said before, many of us have taken in the belief that men are inherently violent, inherently aggressive, and inherently brutal, and inherently evil. It almost seems like that their God-given nature, God created them to be that. And that women, we at all costs, we need to take on roles that are going to protect us from these violent, brutish, aggressive, evil beings that God created. And if we take on that belief that this is what men can be and will only be, then of course you don't want to identify with that. Of course you don't want to submit to that. And that was what was so interesting to me about these different comments, is that I was seeing these subconscious misandrous assumptions. The assumptions that to identify with a male was that you were going to be abused. The assumption that to identify with a male was that you were going to treat him like a baby, as if he can't lead. The assumption that to identify with a man was for you to be controlled, was for you to always to be codependent, for you to make excuses for his bad actions, for you to be victimized. That was the assumption. And that's showing you what many women today believe about men, believe about our men. And that is a problem. And we cannot be surprised if this is the energy, if this is the assumption that we are giving off, if this is the vibe that we are emitting, if you will. We cannot be surprised if we now go along with those expectations, go along with that energy, go along with that mindset, and then we have negative interactions with men. We can't do that. It's not surprising. It's not surprising at all. So again, guys, if you're on here, get those likes up. Get those likes up. Also, shout out to Johnny K for the 10 on the super chat. Much love. It says, you bring light to this dark world that we live in. At the end of the day, like-minded, genuine people will progress. I agree. And that's what I'm saying. These conversations, it's not necessarily for the detractors or for those who have bad intentions, who don't want to change, who just want to argue. I understand they're going to be out there. It is what it is. This is for people who really want to have an open, honest conversation, who are willing to look at things from a different perspective, who are willing to challenge the status quo, or who are willing to simply look at different things from a different angle. I'm going to be addressing the talks of homicide, Black femicide, Black anthropocide, all these different things that happen in the community, because I think one of the main talking points that I see or hear is that Black women are being victimized the most, that they're killed most often, that they're harmed most often from Black men in particular, and it just doesn't bear out from reality. When you look at the stats, you look at the numbers of what's actually happening, it's just not true. So I'm going to break that down, because I know many of you don't believe me. Some of you have you've looked at different sources. Many of them which pull from the FBI, and they're taking things out of context. we're kind of recycling these same title talking points that reinforce lies, and it's unhealthy, especially when what's actually happening is that women are being aggressive and violent, and we got to talk about that. So that's coming up. You guys, that is coming up. Stay tuned. More talks about homicide and interpersonal violence and all the things that give women a reason to not trust men and to fight against black men or to divest or to go there or whatever. All the reasons that women have to not want to learn how to be women and work with the men that they want. All those reasons, we are going to systematically address them and break them down so that you can actually know what's going on and then actually address the truth. Shout out to Awa for the $4.99 the super chat. Hating your male counterpart is the highest expression of self-hate, in my opinion. Same for black men who hate black women. I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. You are hitting on some facts. As I mentioned before, I will never have smoke and I will never have an issue with anybody, man or woman, man or woman, right, who decides or chooses to marry out or date out. You can do whatever you want to do. My main contention is for those who are doing it for reasons of self-hatred, or who are simply promoting self-hatred as if that is empowering to black women in particular. Never in any situation is hating yourself going to be for your benefit or for the benefit of your daughters for future generations. Never. That will never benefit you. And for all of you black women in particular who have so much smoke for black men, remember that when you look in the mirror every single day, you are the byproduct of a black man. A black man, his DNA is running through your body. A black man is responsible for you being here today. So anytime you are so hell-bent, and I say hell-bent because it is hellish and devilish, anytime you are hell-bent on demonizing a group of people or a group of men who share a complexion, remember that that man that you're demonizing is responsible for your existence, and that you are essentially demonizing yourself because you cannot be separate from that which you are created from. Remember that. For you to hate on them is for you to hate on yourself. And that is what you're doing. And this is what I am saying is not good. Again, no one is saying that you have to, because this is where we like to talk. We like to be dishonest and talk in extremes. Nobody is saying that you have to say, oh, all black men are just perfect and you know wrong. No one ever said that. I never said that. I'll never promote that. What we also can't do is act like as if they are demons and the devil and the worst thing that happened when God created them too. Okay? God created black men too. So we can't demonize God's creation and then think that we're being spiritual or that we're empowering black women, especially when that man that you hate, his DNA is running through your body. You look in the mirror every single day and you see him, whether or not you don't want to. And that is what you hate. And that is a truth that you'll never escape. So, shout out to Cameron Phillips for the 10 on the super chat. I see. Thank you for your balanced opinion about our community. We truly value you and your platform. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you stopping by and having these conversations. I really do. I know they're not always fun or popular, and I know sometimes people get their feelings hurt, but you know, I think it needs to be said. So anyways, guys, this was interesting. Oh, there's another one. I see, yay, amen, women are winning. I'll help you. So I have a few minutes. I wanted to share, like I said, my perspective on this, as I mentioned before. Let me bring this because I want to bring this together. I said male-identified mammies are winning. Now, what do I mean by male-identified mammies are winning? If we look at the way male-identified and mammies are used, they are exclusively used to berate, insult, demonize, undermine, and insult women who simply do not hate men. That's how they're used. They are used to berate, to demonize, to insult, to undermine women who do not hate men, who see value in the perspective of men, who recognize that, okay, if I want to be in a relationship with a person, it's probably important that I understand who they are and what they want. This is how male-identified mammies. That's the way the entitled use. Now, the reason I say that they're winning is because male-identified mammies like me, right? Like I said before, if being a male-identified mammy means that I am somebody who's willing to call a spade, acknowledge the facts for what they are, not take offense for it, but acknowledge it for what it is, then I will happily take on that name. The reason we are winning, right, at least when it comes to the aspects of relationships, is because in order to be in a relationship with a man as a woman, I got to identify with him on some level. I have to. And if that is offensive to you, that likely means that you have some misandrist or some hateful ideas about who men are intrinsically. Yes, there are abusive men out there. Absolutely. There are misogynist men out there. Absolutely. There are aspects of society that have been misogynist. Absolutely. There's also been aspects of society that have been misandrist. And misandry, to a certain extent, has been, it's been made okay. It's like now more normal. It's more normal than we think. And in some aspects, it's actually celebrated. Some of the most popular channels and the most well-watched channels are misandrist in nature. And that is a problem. So I think male-identified mammies are winning. One of the people shouted out Danica Marie, for example. Male-identified mammies are winning because we see value in learning how to work together with men. I put Tina Knowles on there right in the thumbnail, a woman who said, "Hey, you know what? Not all men are horrible. Then there's good aspects of Black men that are honestly undermined. And also, I want my son to grow up one day and not have self-hatred. I want my son to grow up one day and see good aspects of him." Or my grandson. Sorry, she's with her grandsons, and so she did that somewhat as a what's the word? Kind of like as like a nod to them, right? As like a gift to them, in honor of them. She's a mammy. But somebody like her who sees value in Black men, who sees value in the men that she is in a relationship with, she's winning in relationships. She's winning in relationships. She's learning how to live harmoniously with those men. I'll use Fantasia because she also talked about the importance of submission and how women are, in the context of relationships, the context of marriage, there's a role of submission that happens. I've said this before and I will say this again. Submission is not a bad thing. Submission is not a bad thing. Now, if you have been in a situation where you have submitted to abusive men, that is bad. And I think what happens is we will take these crazy situations where you were submitting to a pookie or you were submitting to a railway or an abusive guy, and then now you say, "Oh, submission is bad." No, submission isn't bad. You just picked the wrong guy to submit to. So submission in the context of marriage, when you are in a godly marriage in particular with a God-fearing man who has good values, good morals, a good sense of himself, submission is for your benefit. Even if we look at this from a Christian perspective, right, it talks about how women are to submit to their husbands and men are to lay down their lives for their wife as Christ laid his life down for the church. So what we're seeing is that there is a symbiotic relationship where a woman is submitting her life to her husband and her husband is loving his wife and sacrifice for her wife. So it's not, again, nobody is saying that you are 100% putting all your life down on the line and then that person is just going to treat you like a doormat. No one ever said that. But like I said, a woman who understands and recognize the value of being cooperative, working together with a man, honoring the attributes that are given to men, honoring who they are in their nature, not overlooking those who have done bad, but honoring the good, acknowledging the good, they are seen as male-identified mammies. But in reality, those women who are male-identified mammies, quote unquote, right, quote unquote, those women are benefiting from learning how to live in harmonious relationship with men. And that, in my humble opinion, is to be celebrated. And that is good. Obviously, the terms aren't good. The insults are good. But, just to kind of put a spin on things. Also, shout out, I think I just saw a new there you go, Eugene Still. I see God gave us our masculine traits to be protectors and not aggressors. Right. Right. Absolutely. I could not agree more. Also, shout out to Hadara Womb Care for becoming a new member. I appreciate you. All my members. I have some more content coming up. I'm really excited about the next Black Men Built That video that should be dropping sometime this month. Members only, so stay tuned. Also, shout out to Johnny K for the 5 month super chat. This is the economy. The economy will bring these women who think are 10 times better than reality. When inflation hits those nails and weaves, maybe they'll feel the pinch. Gosh. You said once that inflation hits those, oh my gosh, my once inflation hits those wigs, weaves, and sandals. Oh my god, that's crazy. But you know what? You are not lying because it's getting crazy out here. It's getting crazy out here with the inflation. So, anyway, y'all, this has been a good conversation. This has been a good conversation. Y'all let me know if you want to open up the call lines. If I get three super chats, then I'll know you want me to open up the call lines. If not, then I will shut down because I'm starting to get hungry. So like I said, if y'all want me to stay on for a few minutes, then I'm asking just for 3 super chats. If not, then I'll shut it down. So I'll wait a little bit. And like I said, this was it's always interesting for me to hear where people are coming from. And that's why, as I mentioned before, I don't exist in an echo chamber. I don't pretend to know it all. And I am really open to honest conversations, and I'm open to learning because this is about, tackling tough topics with truth. That means we are willing to look at the truth. We're willing to look at things for what they are, whether that makes the woman look bad or the men look bad or both. Because without that starting point, you simply will not be able to get to a better result. So you said divestors call and stop. Like I said, if I get at least 3 super chats in, then I will stay on for a few more minutes. If not, then it's all good. I will go and eat something. Shout out to Dark Power for the 5 on the super chat. Also, shout out to maybe for the $4.99. I say I want to hear from the divestors so we can hopefully get the healing process started. I don't know. I don't know if, like I said, I'm always open for divestors calling in, or really any detractors calling in, provided they were able to keep it respectful and provided they are able to keep from name calling. Okay, those 2 things. That starts to happen, then the conversation ends. But if we're able to converse as adults, I am all for, having honest conversations, because I don't pretend to know everything, right? I don't pretend to be perfect or have all of the answers. So, okay, great. So I have a few more super chats come, and I appreciate all of you guys. I appreciate all you guys for the support. So I'm gonna drop in the. He said 1 more super chat. I see. 1 super chat. Divestors can't find white husbands. You know what's interesting? I read through that report. that I reread through it again, and I had misunderstood. At first, I thought it was just 1 study, and then I figured out it was actually a collaborative study that they had taken data from a few different studies, and it was essentially collaborative work. But this is the one that I made reference to in my Divested Illusions video, where it was basically a study that was looking at color blindness, and it was basically looking at the way that white men in particular perceived Black women and Black beauty. And let me tell you, if you are not willing and ready to have if you're not willing to be offended, if you're not ready to have your feelings hurt, don't look at it. But it was pretty damning. But and here's the thing about it: even if you don't believe me, even if you don't want to believe that report and you think it's BS, granted, all you got to do is look at the numbers. All you got to look at the rate of who was marrying who, and that will speak for itself. Let me tell you. Again, shout out to Sheep Rocka for the 10 on the super chat. I also look like I saw a few more come through. I want to acknowledge. He says this is for the divestors. Then again, I'm petty. How cute. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to drop the call line. You guys, if you want to call in, for a few minutes. Feel free to do it right here. And let me know your thoughts. As I mentioned before, you say I'm rude. Oh, that's not funny. I say that I'm rude. You say food is temporary. Let's get the line going. It's all good. I can multitask, y'all. Shout out to Seismic Vertigo for the 45. Oh, that's a um you know what? I just y'all all this love and support. I really appreciate all of you guys. I appreciate all of you for showing up, for hanging out with me today, for being here. For all of you supporters, all of y'all who hit the super chat showing support, I really appreciate you. Looks like I got Black in Effect. He's always fun to speak with. So I'm gonna get you on. Also, shout out to Chief Rock. Man, I really appreciate you. You are always showing support. You are always being encouraging. I really do appreciate it. So okay, let's bring up the first caller. What's going on? It's always good to have you.
What's going on, Shay? I had to stop chasing my girlfriend around the kitchen to come and talk to you. But no, man, look, man. I'm this thing has gone. We are officially in Auschwitz, people. Um, these divested sisters are sounding crazy. You know, me and Shay have this theme. Shay, get prepared, where we talk about the struggle, and these people are really struggling, and that's why they sound the way they sound. They can't deal with the realities of life, and I understand that most brothers are not gonna want to hear it, but that's what it really is. Millennials are struggling, younger Xers are struggling, older Gen Z are struggling, and people don't have the answer. So everybody trying to come up with some lottery ticket ass way of getting out the struggle. And these divestors, if you hear how extreme they sound, they really think this is like their lottery ticket out of getting out the struggle, right? End up with some well-off white Indian Latino dude and just sail away into some white suburb. And it's just not gonna happen.
It ain't
These
happening.
the white people's ancestors did not rape and pillage the planet for them to turn around and give that wealth to black people, to black women, namely. That's just not, it's never going to be a thing.
You
White
ain't
men have
lying about
shown
that.
you legal since 1967, Loving versus Virginia, 1967. I keep on saying it. If these white men wanted black women, they would have been came and got black women. If only 1% of white men are marrying black women, that lets you know the contempt they have.
Yeah,
That's
that's
sheer
facts.
contempt. That's contempt. And I get where swirlers and divestors are coming from. I truly understand the struggle. It's not just y'all. Everybody's trying to come up with a lottery ticket out of the struggle, right? And I'm also talking about non-black people. Everybody, for those of you that know about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, if you hear how certain brothers talk about cryptocurrency, it's like a religion because the struggle is that real. But this swirler divestor thing is just not going to work. And I'm sad already because I know in the next 20 years, 25 years, we're gonna see these people miserable on antidepressants, committing suicide, dying in their apartments by themselves. Nobody know for a month or so until their body start to stink. And I know that sounds morbid, but that's what's gonna happen because these people are hell bent on dis- dissing black men and trying to end up with a non-black man. Unfortunately, non-black men don't reciprocate the feeling in any significant number, and it's just sad. It's just
And,
sad.
and weren't you saying that, like, because I've had, my husband, he's told me this, and I think it's men in general, because men talk, and there's locker room talk, and there's things that men will say around each other that they won't say around women. I know my husband's told me plenty of things that he's heard
Yep,
out of white
yeah,
men's mouth, just being like,
yeah,
I'm just not interested. I'm just
yep. Me too.
and so okay, I
Yeah,
think it was you who were saying that, where you work with men,
yeah.
where you
I
said,
I've worked
I just
blue
don't want
collar
it.
and
Like,
white
stop.
collar. It's bad, Shay. I've worked blue collar and white collar. And this is not something I allow them to I don't let them go into insulting black women territory, but I do goad them to give me an authentic answer from their feeling, not to placate me, right? And when you give them the space to not placate you, and this is where sisters think that these white dudes mean what they say. No, you need to get him to the point where he's not placating you and not ego stroking you. And once you get him to the point where he feels comfortable in telling you how he views women of color, black women namely, that's when you get the honesty of yeah, I'm not really attracted, or yeah, I've had sex with one or two, but it's not really a thing. I would never marry one. And I find that as a black man very insulting, because what they're really saying is, I understand how easy it is. I understand my position in this society
Yeah.
and her position in this society. So when I'm lonely or desperate or whatever, I know I can go and dig in and grab one and do what I want to do and then put her back. And I think a lot of black women think these white dudes are not like that. And if you've ever worked in any environment, especially a
Mhm.
corporate environment, white men understand their social power. They know it. They
Yeah.
know it, and they understand how they can snatch any Latina, snatch any Asian girl almost,
Yep.
and definitely snatch any sister. And sisters don't think they don't think they think that, but these white dudes do.
I think the easiest way for a I was imagine this, the easiest way for a white incel
Hmm.
to not become an incel is to just be open to black women.
Yeah.
Like a white
Well,
dude that's not getting no play,
yeah.
you just if he was just open to white, black woman.
Mm.
Sadly, because there's some out there who,
Mhm.
and like I said, this was my issue before, where it's like
Mhm.
I have no smoke for anybody who wants to date or marry out, no issues. But
Mhm.
sadly, it's the narrative that white is right, black is bad, and it's
Yeah.
like that's dangerous. That's dangerous
It
for
is.
our younger generations. That's dangerous for unborn men, young boys, young girls. Like
Mhm.
it's just bad, and that's how people end up getting hurt. You don't
And that's
vet,
my
you
point, Shay.
overlook, huh?
My point here is, like, I don't, if y'all ever checked out my channel, if y'all ever heard me on Shade channel, on different people's channel, I don't make the black women overweight comments. I don't make the black women attitude comments, because quite frankly, to be honest, that's really not why these white dudes and these Latinos and Asians are marrying black women. They're not marrying black women because they anti-black, period. And like, I think black men and women, because even for black men, our interracial numbers ain't gonna hit no 60%, 50, because this society was built off of anti-blackness. The
Yeah, yeah,
only reason that black men get to play the game a little bit better than black women is because we can buy our way in if we got
yeah.
money and status, and that whole, excuse my language, but that whole big dick, stereotype.
Yeah,
Sisters don't got that, so she can't buy her way in to
right.
the hearts of non-black men. That's the only reason we can move a little differently than black women. That's the only difference. And I think black women struggle with that. Like I said last time I was up here, until you address the anti-blackness in the system, you can never get what y'all are advocating for, these swirlers and divestors, because these people's ancestors didn't rape, pillage, and conquer the planet to turn around and give that money to a black woman. That's just
No,
not how
no,
this works.
absolutely not. That would absolutely not. I mean, and that's what I did a video. It looks like I have a few others on the call. I'm gonna add in.
Hmm. Okay.
Let me add them in here. Hey y'all, how's it going?
How you doing?
So I'd like to get your perspective on the conversation. I know this went into the direction of the divestors, and you mentioned before Mr. Z, Black in Effect, basically that I think you've had a fair amount of interaction with investors, especially
Hmm.
recently. So I know that's why you're kind of like, what is going on? Am I in the twilight zone?
Hmm.
Some of the different things that I was mentioning earlier, it wasn't just necessarily divestors. It was just things that I've noticed in general, as far as just basic misandrist ideas. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious to hear from you. I think it will have Mr. Research and Better You Life Coach. What are your thoughts? I'll start with you, Mr. Research.
So my thoughts is simply this: what does the data say versus what does the government data say? The reason I
Mm.
bring that up is because as you're doing more research, I know that you're starting to find that there's a difference between the government data and the popular data that
Uh
many
huh.
people cite.
Right.
So I've been around research for a while, used to work at the CDC out in Atlanta.
Okay.
I will tell you this: as you do more research, as your audience does more research, you will come to find that Pew Research is a psyop.
That's
Let me
true.
give you some examples why. The graph that they cite has not really changed since 2002. Isn't it weird how math stays the same and all they do is change the year? The other thing you will find with Pew Research, it really their students come out of the University of Virginia. What they do, they use email, they use a telephone, and then they research whatever the census and the DOJ have put out, and then that's how they come with their extrapolation of what's what. Uh, Black demographics does the same thing, but you'll notice that the numbers come out different. Two more things to share with you for your audience to research. Isn't it weird how Pew Research will be focused on Black men allegedly dating out twice as much, but Latino men and Latino
Say
women
that.
are the
Yep.
highest daters out?
Yep.
Yet they never want to mention that decade after decade.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to mention that. So you mean the fact that Black men date out more is better conversation piece than who's the highest? And my last,
No, you're
Well, you
right.
know what that is.
that's why I say it's a psyop. And my last thing for people, look, I'm not a hater of divestors, do you? But where is this information that your marriages are lasting longer? How do you get there? Because the Department of Justice says it's 50% for everybody. So how are you trying to get there? That's why I said to you in my donation, they have a white husband problem. It's really not a Black man problem. White guys are able to date and have sex.
Mm-hmm.
Take you to the family, and put a ring on is a totally different conversation.
Facts.
And until they can solve that part in their video number 4,569 to our Black, you're not really solving a problem. It's just Black man hate. Go get these white
Research.
dudes to bend the knee. And I'm gonna pass
Mr.
the mic.
Research is saying exactly what I just said. It's not us. You're and it's I get it. We should live on a planet where anybody end up with whoever they want. If y'all find each other attractive, y'all have sex, y'all get married, y'all have children, y'all live happily ever after. Unfortunately, that's not the world we live in, and that's not the world we've lived in over the past 500 years.
Yep.
And sisters got to address that. Brothers too that want to do their own thing. Me and Research have had the conversation about SYSBM brothers and passport bros. But this will not work because you would literally have to break the entire global system, and I just don't see that happening like tomorrow. It's just not happening right now.
And that's what I was saying too. Because I'm going to do another post about this. It'll be another topic, but when I posted it maybe a day or two ago about will the new level up be, polyamory or alternative sexuality?
Ooh, it's happening, Shay.
Because it's like eventually, I don't know if women will ever accept, but the results are going to be harsh enough to where they're going to have to look for other options. So I'm like, at that point, if you reject, male leadership, you reject authority, you reject essentially maleness. You don't want to do that. You refuse to cooperate with men. Then it's like your only other options at that point is side piece at best, or just doing alternative things.
Some LGBTQ type of activity.
Well, this is the thing that at least I've encountered anecdotally because I'm a younger man. I've been dating, and I haven't necessarily encountered like a full-fledged divester, but I encounter a lot of women who kind of espouse some of those divester talking points over the years. And one thing I've noticed is the most hardcore of them that I probably would say like they wouldn't necessarily have used the word divester to describe themselves, but they pretty much align with it. A lot of them was lesbians, and a lot of them couldn't get along with Black women.
Exactly.
Oh, interesting.
Yep, that was going to be my point. I covered a documentary that was produced by the BBC in the 90s, I want to say, in the early aughts or the late 90s, and they covered a radical lesbian group coming out of Britain, and we had our own in America. It was mainly white women, and some of the things that they would espouse in the late 70s, early 80s is what we now hear women writ large, but Black women specifically advocating online. And I think if these average kind of angry Black women, and I'm not talking about the ones that are like they know what they're doing. I'm talking about the ones that are just mad and they're just spewing bullshit. If they continue down this road, where they will lead is into some LGBTQ type activity, because quite frankly, once again, you think you're better than black men, and non-black men ain't checking. So what does that leave you? You
Right. No,
know?
literally. There's no,
Yeah.
it doesn't lead you. Yeah.
And to kind of to both you guys' points earlier, I don't even view it as a problem with leadership, with it being a man problem. I honestly think these women have a problem with leadership and it accepting and truly understanding what leadership is. Because
Mm,
you can't blame everything on men and then simultaneously try to get out of that society and out from under the covering of men and still blame them for their failures. Like, you know, it's like pinning something on somebody who has nothing to do with the situation at work.
in a weird way, it sounds like you're saying these are the black women from January 6th. These are the ones that can't accept that the power structure has changed. This is what's going on, or these are the new rules, or these are the ones that's like, no, it's my way or no way. And if I can't have it my way, I'm gonna storm the Capitol. Like that's what you essentially is like what you're saying. And I think that's what I'm saying too, actually.
No, definitely. Like
Hmm.
these are relationship terrorists. It
I
doesn't
agree.
matter.
I agree. Hmm.
It doesn't matter. You can put white guy, Asian guy, whoever it is.
Hmm.
They're gonna have a problem with them because they can't accept it. Basically, a traditional relationship dynamic. They want the freedom
Yes. Yep.
of
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
modern, I guess you say, feminist ideology. I don't quite
While
know
still
the
having a
right
tradition.
word. Yeah, but they want the guy to still be traditional, and it's like, no, we equal, we equal.
How does
Like,
this? And that's the thing that we're in. Okay, so in this particular conversation, we're focusing on black women, but I don't think this is exactly. It's not only black women. This is like a millennial Gen Z younger Xer issue where we're like
I agree.
trying to piece together like traditional shit with like modern shit, and it's causing all type of havoc, and we don't really know what to do with ourselves. And I
I
think the
agree.
way it manifests in black women is with this black women in luxury stuff, this divester swirler stuff, this black women empowerment shit, because it's like, how do I get all the things from him without sacrificing anything of me? And it just will not work, you know? Yeah,
Well, before the internet, we had less of this problem because
I
Mm.
agree.
people dealt with their disappointments and they matured themselves through conversation with their peers or adults. They weathered the storm. Now, because of the internet, everybody just gets to blurt out their first
Yep,
impression.
yep.
My
Hmm.
puppy refused to come when I called my puppy. I wanted to do a video, 45 minutes, on why I need to get another puppy. And
Hmm.
then those fans respond. And then now that person hates puppies all of a sudden.
Yep,
It's
yep,
programmed to hate puppies. See,
yeah.
when that first $500 check comes in after you're doing what, over 1,000 videos, when that first $500 check come
Say
in,
that. Hmm.
this is sit down, lay in your bed work. So
Yeah.
now a person grabs out their pen and paper. They don't want to be honest like Ches. They
Yeah.
don't want to be a lady like Ches. They're like, you know what? If I say this to my female fan base,
Hmm.
I'll get more from them. And the same thing for some of these guys. Some of
Yep.
these guys
Yep.
live with their girlfriend.
Hmm.
We just found out one guy, and I ain't gonna mention his name, but one guy who
Stop
passed
talking about me
away.
research.
No, I ain't gonna do that. I'm on somebody else's platform.
No, I'm
One
I'm
guy
I'm
who
I'm
just
I'm calling myself out. Go ahead.
one guy who just passed away. He passed away at
Mm.
56, living with his
Oh, yeah,
sister
yeah,
and
yeah,
brother,
yeah, yeah.
and
Hmm.
had no money to even bury himself.
Yeah, yeah,
Spent 10 years talking about black women. This is the ridiculousness of our community.
yeah,
We
yeah.
we we we, we find too much enjoyment in being anti-black on
Hmm.
these,
That's
on
true.
these
Hmm.
internet streets just to
Yeah,
get rent money. It makes no
yeah.
sense.
Well, the
um,
Oscar Wilde quote goes something like, "It's difficult to get a man to believe something, especially when his paycheck is dependent on him not believing it." So that's pretty much what you just said. Like when that YouTube money started rolling in, we got YouTube creators or content creators that have kind of ventured out and created their own business that started from, you know, their YouTube content. And so when that type of money started rolling in and you start getting, let's say five, six, $700, I mean $7,000 checks a month, I mean, do you really want to go back to, do you want to tell your audience, by the way, I kind of lied to y'all. I kind of tricked y'all. I kind of used y'all. Who's going to do that?
Nope. Ain't no, but
Yeah.
nope. And there's so much money. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's so much money to be made off of lying to women. And that's why I've told people, it's like, look, I mean, if nothing else, you got to know I'm genuine, because I could be making so much more money if I just if I just changed a few little quick things, just started, you know, spewing the common men are the problem talking points, posted a few more luxury videos and, you know, photos of me with some luxury purses, and like it's just you kind of know what to do. It's all kind of like the
Mm-hmm.
same cut and dry,
Yeah.
especially as somebody who actually worked in marketing. So I know what's going on, but it's like I don't want to sit here and feed into the lie, because that's not helping
Mhm.
nobody.
I think it actually goes way deeper though than just
Mm.
so simple. Like somebody's just pushing a narrative. There's definitely some of that, but at least in regards to this issue solely with the Black community, I think some of it can be traced to like a legacy of slavery. And I'm not
Most
no
definitely.
SJW. Like literally, I feel like some of it comes from those perceptions of centuries of being taught that you're less than, and then all of a sudden being forced through segregation to interact with each other. And I feel
Yeah.
like in some
Yeah.
ways what we're seeing is like that 2-3 generations of Jim Crow removed, where we have the freedom to go where we want to go. And they are,
Rhetorically.
yeah, you
Mm-hmm.
know, we have that freedom, but also there's also been some self-hate taught
Yeah.
and negative perceptions, I guess probably
Yeah.
be better word of, you know, and that's manifesting through dating choices. That's manifesting through social interactions
I
where
agree.
some of us perceive others of our race as less than.
Mm-hmm. No,
I
I
know that's
mean,
probably a whole nother topic and
no,
another
I mean, like,
rabbit
but it
hole.
goes to misandry, right? Like, think about this, right?
Mhm.
What we had coming out of second wave feminism was feminists getting into academia, getting into the entertainment industry heavy, getting into different positions, and then bolstering women. I don't actually have a problem with that. There's nothing wrong with that. What ends up happening is you start to have a critical mass, not all, not most, but enough women making enough money, having enough status that now the power dynamic starts to become an issue because what they want is men above them, but the men above them date and marry across the board. They just don't keep it at this top 20%. What you have in the Black community is an exaggerated disparity. And so the brothers that's on the top 20% are dating everybody. They having sex with everyone. Meanwhile, the sisters may be having sex with everyone, but they only want to marry the select 20%. And they get screwed because the white men are too racist. The Black men are dating and marrying across the board. He don't care if she work at Walmart. He don't care if she's a teacher. He doesn't care if she's a pharmacist or any of that. You, on the other hand, because you make 80 plus, 75 plus, 90 plus, because very few of us are making six figures. Let's stop it.
Mhm.
Because you make 75, 80 plus, now you want to do that make 120. And that's just rare, period. Not just for Black men, rare. And so you screw yourself, you know,
Let
and
me
that's
say
where the class informs your anti-Blackness. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
let me say something positive. You
Mhm.
know, especially on the what I call Mimi. I don't call them Mammies. I call them Mimi. You know, the male identified ladies, the Mimis, they are the ideal woman because they're the women that have an understanding for what men go through. And what's crazy sometimes, you even got to remind brothers, because I've said this in these manosphere circles for years. Don't attack women who are not attacking Black men. Stop being childish, going out as a guy to attack female platforms just because they're female. You are adding to the problem. Don't don't tease that chubby girl with the pimples on her face
Yep.
because she
Yep.
might be a lover of men. She might not be for you. Be a grown adult man and walk past her without having the childish need to tease her. Because once again, when you do that, you create her as a victim for the anti-male community. You as a black male, you help create these Cynthia G's of the world. She's still mad at her dad for what he did in Seattle, leaving the family. That's not our fault, but she can't let that go. We saw videos of her own brother telling her, "Hey, look, y'all hurt." He telling his own sisters that, and they can't let it go because guess what? The prophet is coming in. So let me say this real positive thing. I like sisters. You know, I like sisters.
I only date them.
Sisters, many a times, they want to love us brothers. But here's the problem, Chiz, and this is something that married women need to try really good. It's not necessarily easy to love some of our black women because of the pride that goes on in their brains. Just like a guy has to unlearn boyish ways, sometimes our women have not unlearned girly, insecure, I want my way ways. And it's but at the same time, she's calling herself a woman and she's on her 999th penis. That's crazy.
Well,
it's hard for her to come into my life and not jeopardize what I've built. That's something that nobody's telling these daughters. It's not that we hate them. It's just that some of us have to protect our legacy that we've already created. And she is not mature enough, even at age 30, whatever, to be part of our world.
You know, the question then, because Shay said this stream was about misandry, generally speaking. So the question then becomes, how does and it's a few questions. How does anti-blackness manifest in black women? How does this kind of neoliberal late stage capitalism manifest in black women? How does misandry manifest in black women? How does, like, how do all of these things manifest? Because we understand how they manifest in black men. We see the how black men interact with other black men. We see how white men and Latinos and everybody else. The question then becomes, how do all of these things that we're living through currently, right? Automation, COVID-19, all of these things, how do black women register that as a group? How do they deal with what's going on? And I think once again, this is what we see, right? Because you don't hear swirling ideas from white women, obviously, right? That goes without saying.
No, not even.
Exactly. And I mean, you kind of see. Now, I'm not even gonna say you kind of see it. Asian women are doing it; they just not talking. So that's a whole different conversation. But and I think these are just people kind of practicing escapism or living, and that's why I brought up kind of like cryptocurrency earlier for men in general, because like all of us are trying to get that get rich quick scheme, and we're turning these things into religion. And so misandry has become the thing that a lot of women writ large, black women specifically, go to blame all their woes on and on their ills on, instead of actually acknowledging that quite frankly, this is something that was in the making for the past 40 plus years because of economic and political policy. But nobody want to have that conversation, so they much rather blame black men and say they gotta go meet a white man, whatever.
No, I hear you. I have let's see. Looks like I have. There's a few other calls. Let me see, because I can add a few on at a time. Let's see. We're getting kind of full here. Real quick, if you guys are on here, get those likes up. Tag anybody, share with somebody. Also, please show your support. If you like the show, you can find me on Cash App or Venmo. Also, be sure to send in any super chats. I will be sure to acknowledge super chats. And if this content, you find it enjoyable, you find it useful, please show your support. As I mentioned before, there is a lot of toxic message going on out there, and sadly, those are sometimes the ones that are most important. So for the positive channels, the ones that are making the impact, I will need your support to get out there. So be sure to hit that super chat. Find me on Cash App or Venmo, and I'll share in a few more minutes. Looks like we have two more who've joined us. Hello, JoJo, and say that is it the Owl Show? AO Show. I think I said that right.
Hi, how are you? Hi.
Good.
First time here.
Yeah, so I know. I want to hear your thoughts. We've kind of been, playing around a lot with these topics. I had talked about just different misandry that I was seeing
in the comments based upon my male-identified post, and I know these speakers have been talking a lot about the divestors and just the different relationship dynamics in general. So, kind of want to hear your thoughts. If you have anything in particular to share, I'll start with you, Jojo.
Okay, hey Shay. What I want to say is, a lot of times, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah. So, a lot of times, man, I think we read over into the mindsets of the divestors a little bit too far. The brother touched on something about the slave thing and how that affected our community, and there is a lot of self-hate evident in that, you know. And that's just plain and simple. When it's self-hate, it's no accountability. They're looking to always blame. And myself personally, I'll never put myself in a position to take on the weight of what another man said or did to a woman that hates black men. That's not my place, because see, at the end of the day, that'll be the same woman that'll want to spit on my grave. So I gotta be mindful when I make blanket statements saying that I need to, be nice to a woman that hates me, because at the end of the day, we got people in our community that have taken down major icons, our leaders like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, people that betrayed our own. So it don't matter whether man or woman. If they think like a white supremacist, that's what they are. This blackface and high place stuff is getting drawn out too far. Like, we're not looking at the character of these people. We're more so over, give them a shot. They just been hurt. No, these people will kill you. If they had the opportunity to do it, they would do it. So I better be for real about it. I better understand and know what type of enemy I'm dealing with. These people have disowned us completely. And the first thing and the best thing that we could do as black people is disassociate ourselves from them, because they are poison to our community, because they want to hurt and harm the leaders, which are the men, which are the head. You know what I'm saying? They want to harm the most valuable, one of the most valuable, because women are valuable too, but let me just, they want to harm the dynamic, y'all. So I got to be mindful of that. You know what I'm saying? I got to be mindful of the type of stuff that I'm saying. I can't be on here pandering and just making it sound sweet, because we get a habit. We'll say something just to sound sweet, but that ain't the reality, man. These people really want to kill us. These people actually want us dead. This is for real. This ain't just online. Like, that's how they actually feel. Then you got these trolls out here, but we know what's going on out here in these streets. Social media is just a reflection of what the real world is. How these people actually think. So I got to be careful, man. I got to be very mindful. When I talk about a divestor, when I think about divestor, I'm thinking about my enemy. I'm thinking about somebody that wants to see me dead, man. And it's sad. It's sad, man. Our own people have to be like that. But that's just like a Sambo, like a gatekeeper that's at the door, for white supremacy, letting everybody know what we're doing and how we're making moves and, things like that. They're the same type people. They're the same ones. So I gotta just keep it real, man, and be honest about it. I much love and support said. I'm a Cash App, because I know that a lot of times they be taking they coins off of the super chat. So, I just be trying to keep the algorithm going, but I got you.
No, it's all good. No, and I hear you. I would say, I mean, this just goes in general, as I mentioned before. You should always be safe and protect yourself. And quite honestly, it's sad that you mentioned people who share a complexion have a really bad, they have bad intentions. I mean, it was an African American woman, one of them who tried to kill Martin Luther King. And we've seen this over and over and over again. So just because somebody looks like us doesn't mean that they're perfect or because they don't have bad intentions. Some, as you mentioned, are really filled with evilness and hate, and you can't placate that or act like it's not a problem. You do have to draw a clear line with those who are obviously in the wrong. So I do appreciate you calling on and sharing your perspective. I want to give a moment for the Owl Show to weigh in and share his thoughts.
Yes. It was because the mention, like I said, I've never been here before. So because you were mentioning divestment, this has been slightly interesting to me because I came across divestment, the so-called divestment movement, because a particular divestment YouTube live stream came up in my feed. Now, I don't know where it came from. I guess, you know how YouTube works. You get stuff that comes up in your feed, you know, and you wonder, oh, what is this? I had never heard of divestment, wasn't aware of it. So I listened to what, I had never heard of it before. So I listened to the live stream. And when I heard a couple more live streams from this particular one, I'm not naming it because I don't want them to go and do an entire rant about people who are critical or something like that. So I won't deliberately name this one. I have to be brutally honest. Now, I'm a biracial person myself. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the reasons that I'm talking about this is, and I mentioned this on biracial groups that I've been on about divestment. Because there have been a couple of, I'm in a biracial space, I should say, on YouTube. And we mentioned this, I've talked about it a couple times, not that much, but, you know, briefly. And I've talked about how really disturbing divestment can be in terms of the rhetoric. The problem, as I see it, is not divestment as a movement. It's the rhetoric. It's what they put out there. It's what they dissect and genuflect about. And that's the problem. The problem is what people are saying. And to be honest, some of the rhetoric that I've heard and some of the things I've heard from some of these divestors is so, I don't want to say vile, but so critical to the point that it sounds nearly white supremacist.
Let me ask you a quick question.
I mean, you know, I've been kind of thinking. Go ahead. Sorry.
Quick, just a quick interview question, only because you brought it up. As a biracial child, do you find any correlation with what these people are saying versus how you anecdotally lived your life?
Good question. You mean as a biracial person? Let me correct you there.
I meant like former childhood, because sometimes people say that.
Well, it's nothing to do with my child. Yeah, it doesn't have any correlation to my childhood, but I will answer that in terms of part of the reason that I started looking into it, because I know the divestors, part of divestment is obviously the component of interracial relationships, because that's a significant part of it. But divestment, as I have seen it, from what I've listened to in terms of what some of these ladies have said, is not really about interracial relationships. It's a combination of romantic relationships and a sort of life-altering lifestyle change, meaning there's a focus on education, there's a focus on employment, there's a focus on neighborhoods and communities. And the romantic and marital part of it is just integrated as a part of that. So that's what I found, because I have paid a little attention to it, not much, but a little. So I find when you speak about divestment, what you have to say is that it's a very holistic, I don't know about organic, but a holistic sort of experience. it's a combination of different factors. That's what I found. In terms of how it what they talk about, how it relates to me as a biracial, it doesn't. But one of the things I was concerned about was that these are people that want interracial relationships, and some of them are in interracial relationships and have biracial children and offspring. And it's very clear that these women, a number of these women, have an outright hatred for African American men. And I think that's one of the disturbing things.
Yeah.
That's one of the, I mean, to the point, it's not simple dislike. Like, I don't care for this person, I don't want to date them, or that would be fine. It's to the point of they view them as essentially an existential threat.
Yeah.
Because part of their rhetoric is the whole femicide, black female femicide, and their belief is with at least the one that I saw was they're doing this to help black women because they feel black women are being killed by black men. So they're taking all of these domestic violence and all of these killings, which are occurring. They're right, it is occurring. But what they're doing is skewing it and creating it as a sort of propaganda for their movement. In other words, they're using it as a way to convince women and to, I guess, how do I put it? Persuade them to accept it to a certain extent, and putting it out there and saying, look, this is what happens in these communities. This is what happens with these men. And it's true that you do have these killings, you do have domestic violence, but taking that and simply equating that as somehow a norm, as if that happens and it's the only thing that happens, I think is very dangerous in terms of their rhetoric. Very dangerous.
Go ahead, Chaz. You were about to say something, Chaz?
Yeah, no, you are well, first of all, I think you hit the nail on the head on a lot of things as far as divesting, in my estimation, from what I've seen, has been literally just that, black male misandry at its core. And that has been my main beef and contention with that movement. No issue about anybody, preferring to date and marry out. I mentioned before, some of my best friends are in interracial relationships, so I have no issue with that. I have issue with spreading misandry. I have issue against spreading lies against the black community. And I think it's damaging, and I think it's actually really harmful. And that is what I've seen over and over again to be consistent. And even right now in this space, I saw, shout out to Deanie, first of all, for the 10 on the super chat. And he mentioned in there that they are doing damage control right now. And they are, because right now there's this kind of civil war happening where there's some divestors, radical divestors, who are like, no, we want to be open about black male hatred. We want to be open about calling them bullet bags and nakers and, all these.
I've heard terms like that used.
Yes.
There's another one I won't use. But.
Let her finish though.
So I've heard that, and then there's some who are like, no, they share the same ideology, but they prefer to be a little bit more politically conscious about it. So they're like, no, you shouldn't do that because that would make it look bad. Like, I was listening to one the other day and she's like, look, I don't care what black women call black men. I don't care, but it makes you look bad. So just move in silence. And so there's a civil war right now about those who want to be open about their misandry and those who want to essentially push the same ideology, but do it in such a way to where they're not held accountable for the misandry. But at the end of the day, they all kind of share the same ideology.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know. I don't really know a lot about it. I'm going by what I've seen just so that I could get a sense of it. I think another major component is that these are women that I've noticed in my observation. And this is what everyone, not only in this panel, but people in the chat need to really understand. these are also women that are damaged often. Not all of them, but damaged. These are women that have suffered from sexual abuse in their families, physical abuse in their families, and have sometimes been, I think, underappreciated and devalued within their families. Because one of the things that I've heard in the brief time that I've looked at the divestors or observed them is the feeling that men are coddled in men are coddled in African American communities, and girls and women have to do the hard work within the family structure. And so what I see with some of these divestors is one, a resentment. So and also within a sort of familial unit. The other aspect that I see is a evaluation on their part that African American communities are largely ineffective. And that's the biggest component to the divestment, is their feeling that we've got to escape from wherever they grew up. If they grew up in a rough neighborhood that was largely African American, they feel like they've got to get out of there. And so for them, divestment means going to college, getting into a profession or a decent job, and also being in different neighborhoods where they can kind of be around people that they feel will validate them, because they didn't receive the kind of validation and support either as a child or as a teen or even now as an adult from people in their former communities. So that's probably the most important part of that when you look at the divestment, from what I've observed. Those two components are, some of them are that come from real abuse, real sexual abuse, real physical abuse, and I guess for some domestic abuse, even if they got a little older. And so for them, they are looking at it from a rational standpoint and going, we have to reject that. That's why the component in regards to the femicide is very important, because they feel like some of them have come from circumstances like that, and they feel like they got out of it, they were able to move on with their lives, and that's why they're divestors. So those are important things to keep in mind when you're looking at the divestment movement. It's not simply a matter of misandry, as you put it. It's not just hatred for hatred's sake or dislike. There are very clear reasons that they have for it. The problem with the divestors is the rhetoric. It's like if they just simply decided, I want to grow up and leave and get out of here and do my thing, that would be fine. But the problem is they're going on YouTube and they're spouting rhetoric that is very, very, in some respects, inflammatory.
Well,
some of the stuff that I've heard is extremely inflammatory.
Right. So I do, I appreciate you sharing. I think I am going to try to wrap this up within the next few minutes. But I think to your point, you hit upon Black femicide, which is one of the main talking points that they promote to kind of to try to incite fear within Black women. I mentioned before that I'm going to continue to address that, and I'm planning on doing a pre-record to really dive deeply into it, because some of the different main talking points being pushed at, for example, Black women are, being killed every 5 or 5.5 hours by the hands of Black men, things like that, that they're actually lies in their propaganda. So I'm going to address that, because I to your point, I do know that is a big kind of talking point to essentially promote their argument. And another thing I kind of want to mention too is that these divestors assume as if there's not domestic violence and things happening in other communities. I know I will say, at least in my own life, this is my own life, but the majority of women that I know personally who have had physically and sometimes sexually abusive situations are white women. I know quite a few. I've actually had a few of them come on and talk. So, but the thing about it is, I don't see, Latina woman going and saying, "Oh, divest from, Latino men and only marry, I don't know, Asians, or I don't see, white women going and saying, oh, divest from white men, you got to marry black men, because they don't have self-hatred. So some of these women, I think, already had self-hatred, and then perhaps their traumatic experiences combined with maybe already preconceived notions about their lack of self-worth because of various components have now took them down the path. Because to your point, there's a lot of women of all different ethnic groups who have abusive situations and have had abuse from men. And I know many of white women who have had abusers who were white men and went on to marry white men and create white children, and they're not creating platforms and channels. So I think, to your point, violence might be, those different things I think have informed their experience, but I think there's also obviously aspects of self-hatred in it that I just don't see being as prevalent in other ethnic groups. So yeah, those are my thoughts, but I appreciate you calling in. Do you have any final thoughts? And Mr. Research, do you have any final thoughts?
Go ahead. I'll let the gentleman go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let me briefly respond and then get my final thought. I think what I also note, I don't think it's simply just self-hatred. It's also, remember, one of the things, that's why I noted this very specifically, divestment from what I've seen seems to be more like a self-improvement. It's a holistic type of self-improvement. So the problem is that you have the positive aspects, which is education, getting a decent job, moving to decent neighborhoods. But the problem is that is mixed with all this toxic and sometimes highly inflammatory stuff, which we've noted, right? So for them, I don't think it's simply a matter of self-hatred as it is a matter of personal motivation. It's a feeling that the community they're from is a failure and that they want nothing to do with it. Thus the term divest. That's the important part to keep in mind. It's a feeling of, hey, you want to get out of that. A number of that is, to a certain extent, that's class-based, right? If you come from a poor or working class neighborhood and you don't like it, you want to get out of there and live in a middle class or upper middle class neighborhood. So part of this that's mixed in with it is class, right? It's a feeling of self-improvement, economic self-improvement and empowerment. But the problem is that's mixed with a lot of negative elements. And that's why divestment is kind of controversial. The final thing I would say is the only reason that I'm talking about it is I know some of these ladies, obviously the interracial aspect is there. What concerns me is that these women are married, some of them are in relationships, and they have biracial offspring. And I'm wondering if they teach them these things or these aspects to their children, because their feeling is they don't want their daughters to have anything to do with that. And that's fine if they're living in different neighborhoods. But again, I think that's the dangerous component from my perspective. I look at that and I go, because I talk to a lot of biracial people, and I won't go into the issues, but to me, when I talked about divestment in a couple of biracial channels, it's been this feeling like, yeah, they're over the line and there's just too much hatred on their part, and I tend to agree with that. My concern as a personal note is just in regards to the biracial offspring. I just wonder what they're saying to them, how they're teaching them, what they're talking to them about. That's the concern as far as I'm concerned. But thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for calling on.
Mm-hmm.
So, with final thoughts, I would encourage the gentleman to research more of this stuff, because his final thing he said, he would wonder. Well, we don't have to wonder. We've had several internet people show that they wasn't teaching their children anything.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So we get these people sometimes, and I'm not going to belabor the brother because his thought pattern, his theory is his theory. But we have these very long opinions when all we got to do is go research, and then our opinions would get dramatically shorter, because we would see we have YouTubers who used to date out who are now with black men. We have celebrities who championed dating out now coming back to the Black community. This happens all the time on both sides, men and women. You know, Forrest Griffin III still can't get it right with a white woman, and he on his fourth. You know, so I do also want to bring up what you said, because I've said this for about 11 years now. There's a difference between an interracial dater and a swirler or divester. Interracial dater, you never even know who they mate is. His name is just Tom. You know, they don't go around waving the flag of I got an Irish guy.
Yeah,
I got a
no,
Scottish guy. They don't.
not even.
Yeah.
Not even.
Interracial daters are peaceful people who just found love with who they found love with. And the only way you even know that they of a different thing is by accident.
Yep. I know quite a few of those.
Right.
I know quite a few of those. Yeah.
But the divestors and the swirlers, they gotta say it loud and say it proud. And that's okay too. But when it backfires, then they want to make it quiet, Chess. Then they want to slither off because they don't want nobody to know. When one of the popular YouTubers got divorced from the husband she had been championing for years, I'm not going to say her name, all of a sudden, her whole rhetoric changed from, well, if you want to get married to a Black man, then it changed from to, well, you should get the man that's qualified for you.
Right.
Well, why did that happen? Because the guy filed for divorce. And it was going to kill her brand, kill her books, kill all of the rent money that she had put to the forefront. So we got to understand, some people have an agenda, even on the male side.
Yeah, that's facts. Facts.
Even on the male side, we got guys who talk about, oh, I live in China, I live in Thailand, I want my Chinese woman. Okay, so why are you every week coming into Black male circles talking about Black women this and Black women that? Shouldn't you be happy? Shouldn't you be learning more Chinese at this point? Why are you over in the community stirring the pot? Oh, I'm free to think. Okay, fine. So go be happy. And look, what somebody said Latinos are white. You know, I research a lot of history. Please go look up Hannibal the Great Grandfather. He was an African from North Africa. That's before white folks even were in what used to be called Hispania or Iberia. So a lot of times, you know, Black folks, we be believing stuff that, you know, the anti-Blacks have taught us. You know, and I'm gonna end by saying this. Thank God there's nice sisters like this one, nice sisters who are invading the internet with the nice sister intellectual approach so that our daughters can have balanced conversation. Like, I don't want our daughters to believe one side or the other, but I'm glad that our daughters are able to have a counterbalanced conversation so that they can fairly choose and understand. Some of us dudes, we ain't tripping like that. Some of us dudes don't hate you. Some of us are good dudes, and you just got to work for us more. I'm a career professional. I ain't gonna just let anybody into my circle. That ain't happening. You're gonna have to present. You're gonna have to work. Oh, you don't want to approach me at a bar? That's on you, sweetheart. Because the upper class Black woman is doing it. The upper class coon, as you call her, she's doing it. Hello, how you doing? What kind of drink is that you drinking? That's what she's doing. So if y'all want to sit in the corner and wait, then Tank Top Tony is going to be in the corner going after you, not the dude that's established. Thank you again, Shez, and talk to you on the next one.
All right. Thank you. All right. Well, this has been a good conversation. Again, be sure to hit the like button before you head out and share it and tag it. Also, if you would like to show support to the show, as I mentioned before, you know, I'm going to do my best to continue to try to have these conversations and make sure that you guys are hearing balanced information, you know, hearing
things that are statistically sound. I certainly do not pretend to be perfect and have it all together, but I'll do my best to at least provide good information that you can research on your own so that we can have honest conversations. Again, if this is something that you like, if you want to continue to see positive messages go out there that are combating the common and popular, unfortunately, misandrous aggression, if you want to hear more more balanced perspective so that your daughters, granddaughters, future generations, or just people today can hear it, I'm going to need your help and need your support. So definitely continue to share support however you can. You can find me on Cash App or Venmo. I appreciate all super chats. I appreciate all of you guys who have become members and who have decided to support me monthly. I really do appreciate you. That is helping me and will continue to help me keep this thing going. So again, to wrap things up, as I mentioned, that post that I shared, that's kind of what started this whole conversation. It was very interesting. It was very, 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 very interesting. And what it showed me is that so many of us, whether or not we even know it, we have really misandrous, anti-male ideas. We just simply have it. And the fact that any woman who openly says, I, as a heterosexual woman, am okay identifying with the man in my life, the fact that I see as an insult, and the fact that the assumption is that if you identify with a man, you are by default going to be controlled, you're going to be hurt, you're going to be violated, you're going to be abused, shows that we have embraced this misandrous ideas. And that, to me, I think was one of the most telling things about this conversation, about this post that I had where I saw this pushback. Again, nobody has ever said, and I have never said, that you should ever put yourself in a situation where you were abused and misused. I don't promote anybody being codependent. I don't promote anybody being a doormat. I don't promote anybody being a punching bag. Never have I and never will I. I don't promote anybody being in a violent setup. Never have I and never will I. But I think it's dishonest for us to assume that the man is always going to be aggressor and the woman is always going to be violent. We have got to understand that first of all, it takes two to be in a relationship. The women are just as capable of being hurtful and being violent and vile as men are. And if at the end of the day, you as a woman desire to be in a healthy, functional relationship with a strong man who can lead, then you got to know and learn how to identify with him. That can't be fearful. And if at the core you find that you actually are afraid, you have fear of just basic maleness, then that is something worth exploring. And that is something worth acknowledging. Because nobody who is in fear of men, period, can never, or who hates men, period, can never expect to have a healthy, functional, dynamic, harmonious dynamic with them. So anyways, I do appreciate you guys, hanging out with me tonight. And I appreciate for you joining. Again, be sure to hit the like button before you leave and show support to the Cash App or Venmo Sade. Send in your super chats and stay tuned. We have some other good conversations coming up later on this week, over the next few weeks. And thanks for hanging out with me today. And we will talk later. Bye.